There's what will it be meaning? Like it's a beautiful day or something
Such
like
things.
that. Some lie.
All-encompassing adjective. I will find one for sure.
Some lie.
What do you mean
Maybe
some lie?
Some big lie.
Only the truth.
Only the truth.
And you shall know the truth, and it shall
Set you free.
voila.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning to you, Ndu. Good to see you.
Same here. Good to see you. Good
In
to
these
see
days of COVID-19, it's good to see somebody.
you.
We keep thanking God because of what we are seeing in the country. You know, that the cases of COVID-19, even though they be increasing, but our healthcare system is not being overwhelmed and overrun by COVID-19. And we pray that it remains that way. In fact, that the few cases that we see going to hospital even stop. We stop having those cases of people going to hospital. Because sisi hatuna nguvu. Sisi hatuna uwezo.
We would not be
able. Sisi ni wanyonge.
Kenya would not be able.
We can't hack this thing. We cannot hack it. So, yesterday, for instance, the CAS for Health, Dr. Rashid Aman, what did he say about the cases that we have now?
Tell us.
He said, we are going to scale down our testing because we don't have the kits that require to test.
I can't believe that's even a reason that's made public.
We're having problems. So, in fact, we have a backlog of samples that are waiting to undergo testing at KNH and the National Influenza Center. And even at Kemri. Yesterday was a story, and we talked about it. It was a story in the paper yesterday that Kemri has run out of reagents. So our testing capacity is being severely affected.
Why is that a reason? Why
Global
is that the
supply.
reason?
You know, we've got to use some of these. Nini. When else do we use such words? Global supply chain challenges.
Inadequate. Inadequacies of the global supply chain.
Yes.
No, sorry. That's not a reason. It's not a reason that should be given. Honestly, it's quite a shame that would be the reason as to why testing cannot continue, or rather samples that have already been collected then cannot be tested. I mean, come on.
You sound like you don't believe that there are global supply chain challenges. This is an international story. All global world leaders have talked about this.
And yet, countries have still been able to procure and allow them to continue testing.
When we spoke with Dr. Amoth, he told us, look, you place an order with a certain supplier, and then this same supplier receives an order from a bigger country. What does the supplier do? Goes to the bigger country. So basically you're here, you're being told, you go back.
I would have
stand back in the queue. Because of who we are, because we are weak, we're a third world. What is it that city?
Third world developing backward banana republic.
Yes, all those things. We're basically just being reminded by everybody else in the world that this is where you are.
You know, if it had been
I'm
said,
coming and I need test kits. I need how many? Hello, I need 10,000 because I need to not 10,000. I need 1 million. And here you are as Kenya trying to procure in batches of 10,000. Even if you are the trader, what would you do? This guy wants batches of 10,000, and this other one wants everything that I have in store. You give the guy who wants everything you have in store.
Okay.
And then they're paying up front. Kenya is not paying up front. Those are the challenges that Dr. Amoth was telling us. These are, by the way, even as we keep bashing the government left, right, and center, which we like to do, and it feels very nice to do
No,
sometimes.
it does.
Let's also be real. Let's accept the realities. When the government
So
is
the
telling
reality
us
that we're looking at now
challenge,
is that we cannot continue to test. Kenyans cannot continue with testing because of the tests are not available.
we are
on the global
continuing with
market.
testing, but not
We're not going to
the way we
see-
had expected that. We'll be testing. We'll be doing like 10,000 tests by June, July. We will not get there.
We're supposed to have 10,000 tests in March. So in March, it didn't happen.
It was supposed to be 10,000 cases confirmed in March,
And
according to the
of
modeling.
those 10,000 cases
That means the
confirmed,
test
it means that
would
the
have been
tests would have at
100,000.
least been. So even in March, when they said they were going to do this thing, it didn't happen. So talking about global supply, no, it shouldn't be.
Things are thick, Ndu.
They should be thick like that. It had to. Unfortunately, we look at this and you say, okay, then
It's the
if there's some
inequality
kind
of the world.
if there was some kind of failure in how all of this was being done, it's unfortunate that really people's predictions then have come true. That they were going to lean on something like the inadequacies of the global supply chain. Those are the reasons now why you will not be able to test. So you know what? People are going to be walking around with COVID-19 in Kenya. And if infections happen, it will be because we're not able to procure reagents, not able to procure testing kits, and that would be the reason. Quite sad. Quite sad.
Yeah. This world is not our home.
Here we go.
There are people who belong here more than us.
Yeah,
Us guys belong, we're somewhere there outside at the door.
You're happy to go.
That's what the rest of the world is basically showing us. This is what the rest of the world is showing Africa. That you Africans, you don't deserve an equal share.
Because you've not opened your mouth to talk. These other African countries who are getting their rapid testing, who are getting their testings done, it's because they're bigger or larger.
Give me 5.
South Africa, Nigeria, Rwanda,
South Africa
Uganda,
is not doing the PCR
Senegal.
tests.
It doesn't matter. They're testing.
Yeah, they're not doing the PCR tests.
So what's
Uganda, even as we talk about that, they are not doing more than 5,000 tests a day. They're just like us, by the way. The only thing about Uganda is because they're also doing just the targeted testing, just like Rwanda.
Okay.
Targeted testing.
Okay.
But because of these other measures, because they've closed down the country, they've shut down the country, they've stopped movement of people, so we don't have a lot of a high case of community transmission, then they're able to maintain the testing within those parameters. Okay. So they're testing at the borders and all. Same thing with Rwanda, testing at the borders and all. So they're able to do that. But their tests are not much higher than we have. So us guys have already done 82,000 total number of samples tested so far. None of those countries has gone beyond 100,000. We're around there.
Has not gone beyond 100,000 tests. Oh, okay. Okay.
So we are all the same banana republics. That's what the West is telling us.
It's actually
the
quite
big
sad.
boys. And
Why are you trying to start me off on a sad note?
Remember,
this
South
morning?
Africa is not considered Africa.
Says who?
Says South Africans.
Don't even start using those things. Then
When you go to South Africa, they tell you,
also,
how's Africa?
Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, Northern Africa.
Yep.
Most likely they're not even part of Sub-Saharan Africa.
They're not.
Well done. Continue telling me like that. Look, I refuse to be dragged into this this morning at 6:19.
It's the reality of things.
I refuse.
So the number of tests we have done, the number of cases so far in Kenya, 2,093. Total
10,000.
number of confirmed cases.
With what you're saying now, and with what we're hearing is going to ensue in the next couple of days, weeks, that number is easily 5 times that.
In the last 24 hours, we had tested 2,892 and 72 tested positive.
Yep, this is what has happened.
So, what are the numbers of the rest of the world?
So now, if you want
those people who can test.
So it seems that the African naysayers actually were right. The capacity of testing in Africa is actually going to be quite low. And it is probable that you're going to have quite a number of people in the streets of Africa walking around with COVID-19. But the inability of governments to test is actually what is going to hamper. And voila, 2 months later, it is actually coming true.
Yep, and our protector, our redeemer in heaven is basically just keeping us all alive.
Oh, Lord. Okay. 6,485,571. That's what we're looking at around the world. 382,412 deaths. I continue to look at those countries where now, in the last 24 hours, 2,000 more deaths have occurred in the United States. And the number of cases to 1,881,205. Brazil, again, continues to surge. In the last 6 hours, 1,569 cases, taking the number up to 558,237. We must look at the fact that Brazil does have a population of 212,442,762. So though the numbers are rising, it still represents a small number of the population. However, because of the fact that they're rising so rapidly, this is what the cause for concern is. Mexico, the numbers are heavily increasing. 3,891 cases in the last 6 hours, 470 deaths. South Africa now at 35,812 cases with 755 deaths. We know that they are testing in Africa, and those numbers continue to rise. Okay, so now if we want to look at other African countries, Nigeria, 10,819 cases. They continue to test as well. The North African countries, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, following. Ghana with 8,297 tests, or rather cases so far, with 38 deaths. And so we continue to see those numbers move up like that. So we come to Kenya, 2,093 cases with 71 deaths. And Somalia, 2,089 cases with 79 deaths. It was interesting because Somalia had reached 2,000 about a week ago. Kenya has now reached the same number. And it's just 8 deaths shy of the numbers that Somalia has. All right. So still, again, looking at the neighbors of Tanzania, still at 509 cases. Remember that Tanzania has decided they're not going to be sharing this information with anybody. You just carry on with what you're doing. We shall carry on with the same.
They're testing. When they find a case, they treat, and that's it.
Yeah, they're not telling anybody.
We don't have to tell you. I mean, we are not telling you who's dying of malaria. Why are we telling you who's dying of COVID?
This is the stance that has been taken. All right, Uganda with 489 cases. Remember, there are no deaths in Uganda, and it still is the case. Rwanda, still no deaths in Rwanda. They still continue to register a few cases here and there. 2 deaths in Rwanda now.
2.
Yes. 2 deaths in Rwanda, 384 cases in Rwanda. And this happened over the last 48 hours. Okay, so the numbers continue to rise. There are some countries who had cases of COVID and they disappeared and they no longer record any cases at all. So, countries like Eritrea, whereby,
there's still more cases.
None.
No cases at all reported.
Yeah, they reported 39 cases about 2 months ago, 0 deaths. So they were looking at total cases per population. Per every million, there were only 11 cases per every million.
The Kiwis have reported no new case in how many days? 21 days?
21 days.
Okay.
Yes, they have.
Okay. 23 minutes after 6. Let's first take a look at weather and then continue this conversation. We'll be taking a look at the newspaper headlines. What's what's been reported. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this morning, Nduoko and Eric Latif.
.24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
All right, let's look at what things look like this morning. In Nairobi at 13 degrees, clear skies. The chance of rain is quite high, forecasted for 23, the high today, and lows of 13. In Nyeri, it's partly cloudy at 14 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 13. Nakuru takes us to a high of 24 today, and chances of showers quite high in the afternoon. Eldoret at 12 degrees, thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 22 and lows of 12. It's 19 degrees and partly cloudy in Kisumu. It's going to be raining in the afternoon with highs of 28 and lows of 19. Kakamega at 16 degrees is partly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 16 with thunderstorms forecasted for later on in the day. Let's see what it looks like in Malindi, where at 24 degrees it's mostly cloudy this morning. Thunderstorms might come in early, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Light rain showers already being experienced in Mombasa this morning at 24 degrees. Likely to be a wet day throughout, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Kampala is mostly cloudy at 20 degrees. Thunderstorms for the afternoon, highs of 26 and lows of 19, and further on into East Africa. In Dar es Salaam at 24 degrees, it's partly cloudy, highs of 31 and lows of 22. Johannesburg is clear skies this morning at 8 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 7 with sunny conditions through most of the day. Taking a look into Lagos, where it's clear skies and periodic clouds at 26 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 24. All right, London promises to be partly cloudy and rainy in the afternoon with highs of 19, standing currently at 15 degrees. When the sun does come up in New York later on, it'll be covered by clouds and rains later with highs of 23 and lows of 17. And finally in Paris, clear skies at 19 degrees. It'll be that way through the day, highs of 27 and lows of 13.
Minutes after 6 o'clock. Now we take a look at before we come to the news on COVID-19. This is according
Spice
to
up your life.
South African publication.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Irresponsible drinking. Have you seen the video clips of when South Africans were allowed?
Mornings.
And the sale of alcohol was now allowed, and now the liquor stores were open.
People
and
behaving as if they've never seen alcohol before.
There were queues to the liquor store. Okay, now this is what we are seeing. 10 people, 8 of who were pedestrians, have been killed on the first night of level 3 of the lockdown on Eastern Cape roads, with the Provincial Transport Department citing alcohol as a cause of the majority of the cases. Out of the 10 who died in Eastern Cape, 8 were pedestrians, according to the Eastern Cape Transport Department. The MEC for Transport Safety and Liaison, Weziwe Tikana Gokchiwe, has called for calm, responsible behavior and high alert on the roads following what she called an unprecedented high number of pedestrian deaths on the first day of level 3. The provincial transport spokesperson says pedestrians accounted for all but 2 deaths of the total 10. Alcohol has been cited as a major contributing factor to the majority of these accidents.
Good heavens. So, looking at what that points to is that, people have been literally locked up for some time and now being allowed to get out, the first thing that they run to is alcohol.
Yep.
Indicative of a number of things, I would say.
It was alcohol and then they just overdid it and we are back. Cases of death on the road.
I know.
We just can't back up. It's one of those. We've also seen the same kind of, not in terms of accidents or deaths, but we're also seeing the kind of behavior that people are having now that restaurants were open. And we know that very many pubs are also selling alcohol. Same happening.
Well, now that we're still on the international tip, I think it's interesting to note that the descriptions that are being given to America, North America specifically, and what is happening seem to be the descriptions that have always been used for African countries.
For the rest of the world.
Oh, yes, for the rest of the world. And I think, we're not making a mincemeat of it, but it is quite serious. If we look at what the Washington Post said yesterday, gripped by disease, unemployment, and outrage at the police, America plunges into crisis. Story of our lives,
What headline is it? What's that? New York Post?
The Washington Post.
The Washington Post.
Yes.
Oh, actually, there was also an opinion on the Washington Post by Karen Atia, who says how Western media would cover Minneapolis if it happened in another country. If we talked about what's happening in Minneapolis the same way we talk about events in a foreign country, here's how the Western media would cover it. The quotes and those quoted in the piece are fictional, all right? But let me just give you like 2 paragraphs. In recent years, the international community has sounded the alarm on the deteriorating political and human rights situation in the United States under the regime of Donald Trump. Now, as the country marks 100,000 deaths from the coronavirus pandemic, the former British colony finds itself in a downward spiral of ethnic violence. The fatigue and paralysis of the international community are evident in the silence, according to American experts. The country has been rocked by several viral videos depicting extrajudicial executions of black ethnic minorities by state security forces. Uprisings erupted in the northeastern city of Minneapolis after a video circulated online of the killing of a black man, George Floyd, after being attacked by a security force agent. Trump took to Twitter, calling black protesters thugs, threatening to send in military force. And then ethnic violence has plagued the country for generations, and decades ago it captured the attention of the world. But recently the news coverage and concern are waning as there seems to be no end in sight to the oppression. These are ancient, inexplicable hatreds fueling these ethnic conflicts and inequality, according to some fictitious name, a foreign correspondent whose knowledge of American English consists of a semester course in college and the occasional session on the Duolingo app. When told the US is only several hundred years old, he shrugged and said, "In my country, we have structures still from the Roman Empire. In their culture, Americans think a 150-year-old building is ancient history."
Is there anything in that that's wrong?
Nope.
There you go. It's the same thing. Nope. It's all about the wording.
The only word that's missing here is the description of Donald Trump as the strong-arm ruler or the despotic leader of that country.
Despotic dictator.
Yep.
That's all that's missing.
Yep.
But it's very interesting that we see these being played out right now in the manner in which we are. Like we said, if it was another country, the descriptions would have been much different. We've seen videos coming out of the US where protesters are begging the army, walk with us, as opposed to, trying to target us or kill us or injure us. Walk with us. It's in the streets of America. This is what is happening now. Who would have thought that things would implode to such a level already? 26 out of 51 states in the US now are on curfew, not because of COVID, but because of the protests that we are seeing. Army then being deployed in most of those states because of these protests. It looks like an African tale.
And then, in fact, the rest of the world would be issuing statements left, right, and center,
condemning such.
Yeah, the coalition of the European states would be issuing a statement. The African Union, in fact, should be issuing a statement and advising people, and calling and saying, at such a time, you should be thinking about your own people and saving them from COVID-19. What we see here is wrong. In fact, there'd be a resolution going to the UN Security Council.
Immediately. This is true.
Start discussing how we can get there. So before we take a look at traffic, what's happening on the roads, let's look at one headline.
Okay. Oh, only one?
One for now, then we do traffic, and then we come back. Which one do you want to start with?
Okay.
Universities or...
All right, so on the front page of the Standard, how varsity and college slots were shared, the 2019 KCSE climbing the ladder, the long wait for university and college placement for candidates who sat their end of secondary school exams last year finally over as they now know their fate. right. Sciences take most slots at universities. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, programs attracted the highest number of students who sat the KCSE examinations last year. This year's university placement data by the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Services, the KUCCPS, indicate that 122,831 applicants of these applicants placed to degree courses, 66,661 will join STEM programs. Remember, we had, I believe it was the ambassador of the ambassador to the EU or so, and he spoke about the fact that we're looking at more young people actually getting into some of these STEM programs as opposed to focusing just on a university degree. So this is interesting that we see these numbers actually rising. While releasing the 2019 KCSE placement report at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development yesterday, Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha said STEM subjects are critical for producing skilled workforce required for the attainment of the Big Four agenda. Okay, we're still on that. The CS said the remaining 56,000, accounting for 45% of the students, have been placed to arts and humanities. So we see the sciences followed closely by STEM and then the arts and sciences. The Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery offered at the University of Nairobi is the most competitive degree course in the country right now.
Well, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor. This is it.
Yep, there you go.
This is what happens.
122,831 candidates who secured placement to degree courses in universities. 88,724 are those who got placed in TVET.
It's interesting, though, that there are some degree programs that had no applications.
At all.
Zero.
Nobody was interested.
And you're looking at, some universities, you could say, or small universities, but let's start with Egerton University. And I keep talking about Egerton and why Egerton is focusing on some of these things. BSc in automotive technology, 20 slots, 0 application. Bachelor of Technology in Building Construction, 20 slots, 0 application. Bachelor of Technology in Renewable Energy, Egerton. Bachelor of Technology in Mechanical Engineering, still Egerton. BSc in Energy Technology, BSc in Renewable Energy and Technology, BSc in Aquatic Resources Conservation and Development with IT, BSc in Animal Production and Nutrition from the University of Embu, 40 slots, 0 applications. Pwani University, BSc in Oceanography, 40 slots, 0 applications. I think some of these things is just because of lack of maybe proper awareness by the students.
I was going to say the same thing.
I
awareness
know,
and even of what you could do with such a degree when you were done.
I know the Universities and College Placement Service usually goes to schools in the final year to let students know what courses are available. But if they don't also know exactly what this course entails, I think the universities themselves ought to go out there and say, we are introducing this course and we are targeting this kind of students and start, attracting. Because when you talk about the BSc in Oceanography from Pwani University, when we are trying to promote the blue ocean economy, this is one of the things that we should be considering.
It's interesting that you say that,
University
Eric.
is working on the blue ocean economy, and then they have come up with a course. So go ahead and now go to schools and start promoting this particular course.
There was a conference that took place here last year, the year before.
Last year, No, it was in
2018, at the end of 2018, and it focused on the blue economy. And it was interesting because at the end of that conference, the report that was given is that the organizers struggled to find individuals that they would be able to use as conference reporters, that they would be able to use as data information agents for the conference. And this was because they were hard-pressed to find people then who were versed in these areas, right? And it is clear that Kenya is one of the countries that will be highly invested in the blue economy, just as an example. So you can imagine if you have institutions that are offering these courses, like oceanography, for example, and some of these other things that we see here.
Aquatic Resources Conservation
There
Development.
Renewable energy
Southeastern
and
Kenya
technology.
University has the Fisheries and Aquaculture as a BSc course, So
you can imagine they were hard pressed to find such individuals not because people don't exist, but people with that knowledge did not exist. So you would find that there would be people who would want to get some training in such. But now we have institutions that offer the training. There seems to be a disconnect
between the institutions
and the students
knowing that this
exists.
Exactly. Or also even understanding. Because like what you've just said, the report was talking about people understanding.
Mm-hmm.
How many people understand what this whole blue ocean economy is all about? People don't know about the blue economy.
No.
The blue economy, we had a conference. I was there. I was working for that conference for the entire period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you start realizing, okay, so this is what it means. All right. So the blue economy, still, there's a lot of information that needs to be pushed out there on what the blue economy is all about. And I think when a university is allowed to roll out this program, they should also be asked, so how are you going to make sure that people understand what this program is all about, so that you get the best people who are interested in it coming to join and coming to take up this course. University has a Bachelor of Laws and Sharia, 40 slots, and they did not get
even one application.
You know? And we know that there are very many people who actually leave this country and go to universities like in Egypt to go and study Sharia.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are. We have a university that's been operating in the country for a couple of years. It's offering a Bachelor of Laws and Sharia. And we're not getting it. Bachelor of Agribusiness Management, Tharaka University College. When you talk about agribusiness management, surely these are courses that should be
we're going to be having a conversation about that today with the AFDB around issues surrounding the African Development Bank. And it has been said, we know for a fact that agriculture will be the savior of the African continent, just as an example. It's already starting. We are seeing that it would be the one that's going to have the solutions for the inward-looking issues that we have as a continent. We still have this mentality that farming is something that you can learn on the go, right?
Yep. Everybody wants to be a doctor, as you can see.
Yeah, which it is. However, there's a science to it, as there is for most things. So you can imagine the potential, truly, that the continent actually does have, whereby you take something that was traditional in practice, like farming, and then you apply the science to it. How much more could we do?
A lot.
How much more could we do?
A lot. I think it's also unfortunate when you look at some of these BTEC courses, like a Bachelor of Technology in Building Construction, it is not getting applications. 20 people. We are pushing a lot for the STEM, but you're not going into the technology as well. The lower, because the BTEC in Building Construction, that should be a very, very lucrative course, even going into the future. Automotive technology, a BSc in automotive technology, that could be something that's big. When you're seeing Ugandans coming up and doing their own buses and their own vehicles, and we're trying to look for the kind of skills, although I'm sure we have this kind of skills in the country, but it's just about the promotion of it and focusing so much on the academic side of things, saying, yes, we are getting a lot of STEM courses, JQuad getting a lot of these students who are going into JQuad, taking up courses in engineering, civil engineering, aeronautical engineering, mechatronic engineering, electrical and electronics engineering, computer science. These are the traditional STEM courses. We should also be pushing a lot of the other technology courses.
Yep.
BSc in energy technology and renewable energy and technology. This is the future.
It is.
Hey. It's 7:15. Let's take a look at traffic and then look at the other newspaper headlines. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, let's take a look at what it looks like on the roads this morning. So far, so good. I don't think we have many issues already right now. We're going to take a look at what's happening on Mombasa Road and Thika Road in a short bit. But for now, you should be able to get through with not much of an issue. We know that we're going to have a bit of a stop right on Mombasa Road this morning. It was terrible yesterday as a result of this one accident that was there, and that affected things throughout the day. But that should not pose much of an issue today. Let's have a look later at Thika Road as well. But for now, it looks like everything is pretty good. Spice of MKE, in case you see something that we should know about, let us know. Want to keep moving this Wednesday morning? It's Wednesday. All right. So we'll let you know what we see. But in the meantime, please be careful. Take it easy.
taking a look at other headlines. Remember, the live stream is up www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook.
Spice up your life.
We shall look at what was happening at State House and Parliament.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
Now,
Spice up yourself.
Hearing interesting.
Kenya markets Naivasha depot to its neighbors.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All transit cargo destined for Uganda be cleared at the Naivasha Inland Container Depot. The government has moved to quell fears. All right. Mm-hmm. So now what will be happening in Naivasha is that Kenya has moved to fix the challenges that had threatened to stall the 6.9 billion inland container depot in Naivasha. This comes days after Kampala protested the move by Nairobi to direct all transit cargo destined for Uganda, Kenya's biggest raid partner, to be cleared at the Naivasha ICD from the 1st of June. Transport Cabinet Secretary James Macharia, who toured the facility yesterday, said the government had dealt with most of the sticky issues raised by various partners and customers and is now ready for operations. Since last week, the minister had been wooing the neighboring countries to use the facility by listing the benefits. In a 4-page letter, Macharia explained the gains to his Ugandan counterpart. Uganda had argued that the use of the ICD in Naivasha would be optional. Kampala is a major user of the port of Mombasa, accounting for up to a quarter of the cargo that passes through the facility. So now the case is being made for Naivasha to be used as a replacement for Mombasa. And one of the biggest users, of course, Uganda, is saying, okay, well, maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't. So Kenya's...
Here are a couple of challenges. You know, the government likes to call them teething problems, but sometimes those teething problems come at a great cost to those people who are operating and who are affected by the teething problems. So here's the story. So we are now transporting all cargo that's destined for other markets will go on to SGR from Mombasa, go all the way to the Naivasha depot. And then now you truck them from Naivasha depot to the rest of the... So the Naivasha depot is not a new idea. It's not a concept that because of COVID, oh my God, what do we do?
No.
We need to reduce transmission. No, the Naivasha depot was part of the original plan. For the SGR. Do you know what's happening? There's a junction on the road from Maimahiu to Narok that now takes you into the depot, the inland container depot. That junction, should be left turn, right? Left turn into the depot. Is it left turn or right turn? One of them. But there is no interchange. So you can imagine serious heavy trucks are getting to that interchange and they have to do like a left turn or right turn to get into the depot and come back and join the highway. Can you imagine the kind of disruption that's causing on normal traffic? The Maimahiu to Narok traffic. Remember, that road is basically taking everybody who's going to
Western
Kisii,
Kenya, yes.
to Narok, to Kisii, to Bomet, all those areas, even going all the way to Isibania, some of them will use that route. So already that's not done. It doesn't appear to have been anywhere on the pipeline of we're going to make an interchange because this is going to be an inland container depot. Inland container depot basically means that this is going to be a very busy place.
Yes.
Because all the cargo, most of the cargo that comes from via sea will be ending up here.
On this road.
So we have to have a proper interchange here. Secondly, when you get in there, how is it being managed? It's one of those things.
Giving you a headache already?
Yeah, it's one of those things that, the government has a good plan, but it acts as if it didn't have a plan in the first place.
It just seems as if now
and you will see the kind
of
see the kind of pushback from truck drivers when they start complaining that, all right, so I've brought my truck here and we've taken like 7 hours before my cargo is loaded. Or I've come here and there's no proper organization of how you get in, how your cargo is identified, how you get out, how you join the highway, how you...
I mean, it would seem necessary for some kind of plan to take place here. But I think what is overriding all of that is the fact that there needs to be some justification for the almost 7 billion shillings that was spent in on this area.
And
so
coming
now
up with the ICD.
so now there are calls to neighbors to start to use it. Please use it. Use it so that we can also justify the money that we spent on it. And that seems to override everything else. All these issues that you're talking about, traffic now being affected, planning inside the depot itself, and all of that, it just seems to come secondary. As usual. But in this case, it's that, look, we need it to be used so that we can justify this money that we spent on it. Okay? That seems to be what is going on now.
Let me tell you what's happening in the city of Nairobi, in the CBD. Now we have cycle lanes and walkways.
Yay!
They're coming up.
But
Nairobi streets are beginning to take on a new shine as the Nairobi Metropolitan Service works to deliver on what was promised within 100 days of takeover. The non-motorized transport works are going on at Kenyatta Avenue, Wabera and Muindi Bingo streets, coordinated by Michael Ochieng, the NMS Director of Transport, Roads and Public Works. The construction of the pedestrian walkways and cycle lanes appears to have attracted a night visit by high-profile personalities. If a video clip doing the rounds on social media is anything to go by, yes, there was a video clip showing late in the night, the president, the former Prime Minister, ODM leader Raila Odinga as well, was there, and they came to town and they got out of the vehicles and they were walking around in curfew hours. So they broke the curfew basically just to go and inspect this. But well, it's a president.
So
the curfew doesn't apply to him.
No.
He's essential service.
So he was allowed to do this.
So he was allowed to do that. And he was coming to inspect the city.
It would be interesting to know if people knew he was coming.
Of course not. It's one of those impromptus.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the night, there was no welcoming party. No lights had been put out. No, it was one of those. He just drove into town to check in and see what's happening. So we're seeing a lot of those works happening in the CBD, walkways and pedestrian walkways, Wabera Street being spruced up. Let's see how it's going to look nice.
I think so. Finally. I hope people actually use them.
Yeah.
All right. Something that you don't want to talk about, but is happening. The killing of a homeless man opens lid on police brutality during the curfew. This has been reported, across media. The killing of a homeless man, Vaite, in Mathare slums has again exposed police brutality during the enforcement of the COVID-19 containment measures. And even before this has, come to the surface in the manner in which it has, I think we talked about the fact a few weeks ago when we said, you know what, this is presenting opportunity for the police, unfortunately, to lord the position over individuals, over citizens. Hoping that it would not get violent. But we see that happening already. Yep. He's a cart puller with no known relatives, at least to the people who knew him in Mathare. Died from a gunshot wound at around 7:30 p.m. on Monday, moments after police on patrol fired in the air to disperse residents who were yet to settle in their homes. Shortly after, locals burnt tires in protest over his killing and hid his body for use as their protest symbol, but police retrieved it before dawn. Residents said that Vaite was walking home when his killer pulled the trigger that took his life. They said despite being homeless, he was a calm man whose daily routine saw him carting loads to and from Marikiti Market and drinking in the evening.
It's very, that's a very unfortunate incident. Yes, so you've got to enforce the curfew because, people need to get indoors because that's what the law says. 7 p.m., get indoors. But that whole issue of you have to have running battles with people shooting in the air in Mathare and has led previously.
It's going to land on somebody. Yeah.
In Huruma previously has led to the killing of a child.
Yes.
So, learn from some of these things. And why are you firing live bullets?
In the first place.
To disperse people just because you want them to go in. We'll be discussing this in detail at 8 o'clock. Talking to the Independent Medical Legal Unit and others, and we'll also seek your input. What is it that we need to do to finally see police reforms in this country? What is it? Maybe it's looking back at that extractive system that we were being told about yesterday and what we keep talking about. We inherited a system that was supposed to be lording over people. The police service does not work in the service of the people. The police service was used by the colonial government to oppress and to contain people.
And so because of that,
so maybe
still
it's the
having
same
mentality. The dregs of that mentality is still very present today. Because, we see visions in our head of other countries where people approach the police for help, and it's your friendly policeman, woman who is helping out.
Yep.
It seems that unfortunately, it's a totally different case here, and that police are the ones who will then mete out violence. They are the ones who will be brutal. They will be the ones who will beat you up without even thinking about perhaps you actually need help, and it's the mentality. This is again, it's the mentality that they've dealt with for years, and they still have that ingrained. And it becomes and in this case it is systemic, because then people who come into the force later believe that this is the way in which we ought to operate.
The system is wired this way, and we've got to do something to rewire this system. Attempts, even with the new constitution coming up with the board to vet all police officers, because all police officers underwent vetting, right? Having a new police service commission, having a new structure of the police service, all those things still seem not to be able to have broken this kind of system. We still have that. We still have police officers, and the officer maybe who was involved in this was not a police officer 15 years ago. Probably. It's just somebody who's come in. That means there's something that's happening at Kiganjo when they're being trained. There's something that's happening with the bosses when the bosses are giving them instructions. Or even when you come in and you're complaining and you can see what your senior's reaction is going to be. Why were you outside? The first question is,
why were you outside?
Why were you outside?
Place? Yeah. Not that perhaps there could be something wrong.
Yep.
It would be, if it was the other side where the question would be, are you all right? Is there something wrong? As opposed to already coming at you punitively.
Yeah. Why?
I mean, without realizing there could be a problem. But you know what? We see it and we think that it's some primitive, backward behavior in African countries. But it's no different from what's happening in the United States.
Yeah.
For your information.
Yeah.
You want to say that because they look a different way or they're dressed in a different uniform, that the behavior is different. Systemic issues of injustices having taken place over time, still clear and present danger in 2020. In the US, no less.
Siti Muga keeps telling us America is one of the most heavily policed states. It's a police state, America. This whole thing of justice and freedoms and
civil
liberties. America is a police state. Now we can see. Everything is follow the law. If you don't listen to this officer, I'm going to bring another officer with a different uniform. If you don't listen to that one, I'm going to bring another one with a different uniform.
But
you
and
must
a little bit more
follow
power,
the law.
But you will listen to me.
Yes, you will listen to me. I'll invoke this law, I'll invoke the other law, I'll invoke the other. All of them just to make sure that you follow what I am telling you. It's a completely heavily militarized state.
Wow.
Policed state.
Policed state.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate. So we'll be discussing that, the issue of police brutality or the heavy-handedness of the police officers in the country, looking at the cases that we have seen during the enforcement of the curfew, the killing of the man in Mathare. We also saw a story on social media where a man was bitten and his nose was broken.
Yeah.
Just because he was outside during curfew hours. Remember even the people who've been arrested all this time, and the only thing is, we'll arrest you, we will take you into quarantine.
I mean, just a few months ago, we saw the death of a young boy who was sitting on his family balcony. And again, there were shots fired. Through this COVID curfew story, shots were fired and he died.
Yep.
We saw that yesterday, the warrant of arrest has been issued for the officer who fired that gun. And let's see if justice will be served in this case.
Let's hope justice will be served in this case. Today's proverb is from Mali. Listen to this one carefully. If you know you do not know, you will know. If you do not know, you do not know, you will not know.
Wait, okay. Oh, you are not finished? Okay.
If you know you don't know, you will know. If you don't know, you don't know, you don't know, you will not know. Get it?
I'm dizzy.
If you know, you know.
If I know, I know, I know. Uh-huh.
All right. If you know you don't know,
If I
you'll
know. I
know.
don't know, then I'll find out.
I'll tell you again. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
So things have woken up not less than 30 minutes later. The Kasarani roundabout is terrible, overlapping and underspeeding and stopping at the junction, getting onto Thika Road, heading to the CBD. Mathare, it's crazy. So all the way from Kasarani, then you get towards Safari Park, then Survey, all stops. Everything seems to be a mess this morning. Everybody's out on the streets. It's just 7 o'clock, but the traffic is already epic on Thika Road. So if you are trying to get off Thika Road, you're going to have to exercise some patience. If you're trying to get onto Thika Road, you can use the service lanes. The service lanes outbound, the service lanes inbound are a bit of a mess. So patience is already required, and maybe a shot of something else as you're trying to get on and off of Thika Road this morning. All right, coming off Mombasa Road is not too bad. We have a little bit of a hold up right around Cabanas, taking us to General Motors as usual, but you'll be fine thereafter. Looking at other roads coming out of Westlands and then into the CBD, no wahala there. You'll be able to get there quite quickly, as it were. Spice FM KE, anything else out of the ordinary, let us know. We'll take a look at Jogo Road and see how fast you can get into the CBD in a short while, and also coming off Ngong Road this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko,
it's a situation
Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power,
YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The election of a new deputy speaker of the Senate, the matter of a Jubilee Coalition Parliamentary Group meeting, the matter of what's reported as what the President had told the MPs. So we're discussing all that this morning. And then at 8 o'clock, we will talk about police brutality and the unfortunate incidents that we've seen during the enforcement of the curfew in the last couple of weeks. We'll be talking to the head of the Independent Medical Legal Unit, and he will be giving us insights. This is an organization that has worked a lot on trying to promote the issue of better policing in the country. Then at 9, we will go back to regional politics. The Africa Development Bank. Hey! Issues. There's a president of the Africa Development Bank. He's due for re-election, and he's the only candidate so far. Then there are allegations that have come up that he does very many things wrong in the organization, including firing people and bringing in his own Nigerians to occupy the top seats in this bank. And now the Americans have said, hey, whoa, no, this man must go.
The Americans who only have 6.6% vis-a-vis the 60% by African countries.
Americans were the second biggest shareholder.
With 6.6% only.
Yep. Second largest
compared
shareholder.
To the 60%. Who should be calling the shots here? Those are the questions.
The Nigerian who was the majority shareholder is the president. So let's put him aside.
Where are you?
So we'll be discussing this at 9 o'clock. Let me remind you that proverb, because I see like you didn't get it.
Even
if you know,
who read
no.
You who was reading.
If you know, let me just explain. If you know that you don't know, you will know.
If you don't know that you don't know, you won't know.
Yes. There you go.
I got it.
There you go. There you go. Start with knowing that you don't know. Kama ujui. Kama ujui. Kama ujui utajua.
Ujui.
Kama ujui unajua ujui. Ujui. How furious Uhuru told off DPs and DP and his allies. So this is a headline on the Standard this morning. There was a parliamentary group meeting at State House yesterday. 8 a.m. did not last long. It was a quick fire one. President dresses down Jubilee leaders led by the Deputy President during a tense parliamentary group meeting where the House Majority Leader Eden Duale survived the purge that threw out 2 Ruto allies from key leadership posts. And what's the headline in The Nation?
How Ruto saved top ally from axe. Early morning meeting with President Uhuru Kenyatta, Deputy President William Ruto, Jubilee Party Secretary General Raphael Tuju credited for National Assembly Majority Leader's escape on another day of long knives.
So this is what happened. Well, it was 50-50 that Duale would go. Remember, from the very beginning, there had been headlines, his goose is cooked, his goose has not been slaughtered yet. So we now know that his goose is going nowhere.
For now.
He's keeping his goose. And then there was a 30-minute harangue. So according to the what has been written by Jacob Ngetich and Wilfred Ayaga in the Standard, the tense meeting was attended by nearly all the 176 Jubilee MPs, and President Kenyatta subjected them to a 30-minute harangue detailing the areas of their clash with his vision and pleading for breathing space. His main bone of contention, according to sources of the meeting, is the early campaigns to succeed him and which are choking his legacy. A statement by the presidential spokesperson, Kanzedena Mararo, said the meeting was attended by 212 MPs. It had been called to purge Ruto's allies from House leadership positions, but ended up being a thorough dress down for the Tanga allied legislators. The president was not mincing his words, apparently, according to what we are seeing in these accounts, to some point even telling them, look, if you guys do not even respect me, just respect the office.
Respect the office.
Okay? You don't respect me, fine. But acknowledge the fact that I occupy an office and respect the office. And you go out there, insulting me and talking all these things. You think I don't know? You think I don't get to hear about them? I've got intelligence. I have access to intelligence. Basically, telling them I have got access to the machinery of state. Okay?
I hear what you're saying.
Anything that you're trying to do out there, I will know about it. And you cannot just come here and try and derail me and derail my vision and what I want to do for the country. I want to push. And they were trying, to raise their hands, attempts to raise hands and, say, Mheshimiwa unajua pole. Say, shut up. Just sit
I'm
down.
just telling you.
Come and go and sit down.
He heard me.
This was it. Come and go and sit down. It is me talking to you. Meeting was done. They were like, Mzee situombe.
We're done.
Leave now.
I'm pissed off Uhuru.
Yeah, your invite is done, all right?
I only needed 25 minutes to talk to you.
I'm done.
I've said what I
Get
needed
out
to
of
say.
State House. See ati mkae hapa kunywe chai or have certain caucuses or because you are in State House and the State House grounds. No, leave State House. Go.
It was a dressing down.
We're done.
Yeah. It was a dressing down of folks. And I think folks may have left numb or mum in this case. He had it, isn't it? All the things that he had been hearing, this, that, the other thing, whispering in the corners, people saying, making these statements about what they're going to do. Look, it's enough. And now you see personalities then coming out, as opposed to just the office, whereby certain things are supposed to be done. Him being the leader of the party, he being the leader of government, at this point saying, you know what, my personality also will come through here and say, look, all these things that I've been hearing, those who've been talking behind the shadows, it's enough. We have work to do. Let's do this work. You're not going to toe the line. You get out. And
it can't be a discussion of, maybe what you've been told. Maybe you heard what I said, but maybe no, it doesn't matter.
Whether you said it, whether you didn't say it, to whom you said it, wherever you were, it doesn't matter.
That's not the point.
You said it, and we're not dealing with that right now. We want to get work done. If you're not here to do the work that we're saying, out. If you're not towing the line, out. We're streamlining, and I'm telling you guys, you better shape up, or ship out. This is what it is, basically. And before we've seen it of let's come together and work together, but now it's finger pointing and it's saying, you guys, you can't operate like this. If not for me, just like you said, it's the presidency. It's not just some backward side of
You've
the
been
road.
personalizing this thing. You've been personalizing it.
So now let me personalize it.
Yeah, let me personalize it. All right. So you guys have been insulting me, and according to various accounts, he actually went into greater detail of the kind of insults that he's hearing that people have been insulting him, and he said, "Come on, it ends here, today, now, it's done."
Do you think it needed to happen for people to come correct?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Do you
It's
think
important for a leader to sometimes crack the whip.
I think so, absolutely. Do you think, though, that these individuals that he was speaking to then now will listen?
That they'll toe the line?
Yeah.
That there'll be change?
Yeah,
that there'll be a difference?
I don't know if that there will be change per se, but I think now individuals are going to toe the line because they also see that their positions have been threatened. Because this is it, and there's no doubt about it here. We saw examples of that before. You don't toe the line. That plum position that you have, we'll take it away from you and give it to somebody else. And you're not going to be able to. You can, if you want to talk from here until kingdom come about how it's unfair and how there are secrets and about how we're lying, this, that, the other thing. Well and good, but at the end of the day, Shebi, we removed you.
Yeah,
move aside.
That's it.
We're moving forward. You can say whatever you need to say for as long as you need to say it. But we have removed you. And that's the point that I think continues to come here very clearly. That for the last 18 months, people have been saying whatever they want to say. They formed factions within the
and
leading
they've said,
party.
I was not elected by Uhuru, I was elected by the people.
Yeah, so now guess what? I remove you.
I'm an MP, I was elected by the people. It's okay. Then you come to parliament, and because of the party, you get into this position. But even those who are not in positions of leadership in parliament are also being whipped. Right? And I remember the time when the president attended an Akorino meeting at Kasarani. Right? Was it last year? And he spoke in Kikuyu. And it was reported widely. And what he was telling them is, you know what? One of these days, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to be very angry. And I'm going to remind these people that they are not going to be derailing me and insulting me left, right, and center as if I am their little boy. I am not their little boy. In fact, at some point he said, they owe their positions to me. It's not the other way around. Please don't go claiming that you campaigned for me. No. It is because of your association with me that you got into elected. Office. Let's get it right. And even call them takataka at some point in Kyuk.
Did he? He did?
Call them takataka. He was very, 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 very angry at that point. And I can see that's the kind of anger that, he's been seething in anger and just wondering.
I think sometimes we see, we look at presidents and forget that they're human beings, right? So he has a job to do. Whether or not he's involved in the everyday politics of it is not really the issue. He's got a job to do, and then you hear all these murmurings and whisperings. You're bound to get a little bit pissed off, no? You're bound to get to the point where you say, you know what, guys, this really is enough, and let's get the job done. Let's get the job done.
The style, though, was it the right style? Is it the way to go?
Doesn't it seem like it's what people needed? I mean, you can imagine. Think about it. You have kids who are around your ankles every 3 minutes, murmuring here, mommy, mommy, mommy. At some point, you're going to say, you know what? Enough.
You're not even my mommy.
Go to your room or go outside, but do something else apart from bothering me.
I don't even love you. I love Auntie Mo.
Because I have things to do. Some nonsense, which is what it actually is. I have things to do. And you're here because I need you to fill a particular position, to do a particular thing. You're not doing it.
I'm telling you to tidy up your room.
Yeah, tidy it up.
Tidy up your room. No, mommy. But Daddy said, oh, I don't even love you. I love Auntie Mo. Oh, you're not even my mommy. All those kind of things. The nonsense. A child telling you that you're not the mother. And clearly you know you're the mother.
Yeah.
Smack the little. And just remind them that, listen, this is not a conversation. However, I'm still coming back to that point of, was it the way to go? For a long time, Jubilee legislators have been asking for a parliamentary group meeting. Finally, they get a parliamentary group meeting, but they actually don't even go to discuss parliamentary group matters of Jubilee, and this is the agenda that we come as the leader and explain, this is what I'd like us to do, and this is what I'd like the leadership to focus on. No, none of that. It was not a parliamentary group meeting per se.
I'm led to ask myself, though, then, if those who've been murmuring and complaining and making all kinds of noise that attended this meeting yesterday, and then they were told things in the manner in which they were told, are they going to toe the line now because it is the right thing to do, or for fear of being removed from particular positions, or for fear of not being aligned to where this wave of politics is going to take people in the future.
It's for
and
fear
unfortunately,
of
I
state
think,
machinery working.
I really think it is for fear.
Personal.
I don't think it's really because, okay, actually, you know what? He's right. We really have been going quite wayward, don't you think? It's about time to do our jobs. Unfortunately, whereas it should be the case.
There's not going to be sorry, not sorry.
No, it's exactly. It's sorry, not sorry. That's what it is. Okay, so, you know what? I might lose this post. Okay, let me toe the line for now. And unfortunately, I think that's what it's going to be.
They'll unleash that file on me.
Yes.
16 minutes after 7, let's take a look at the weather, and then we'll open up the phone line. 0719 012 600.
All right, so it promises to be a wet day in most parts of Western Kenya. Let's take a quick peek, into what's happening in Nairobi, where it's mostly cloudy conditions today, and we see that there is a chance of rain later on, though, with highs of 22 and lows of 13. Nakuru is clear skies at 13 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 13. Eldoret is clear skies at 12 degrees. However, there will be thunderstorms in the afternoon with highs of 22. 19 degrees and partly cloudy in Kisumu. Rain expected later with highs of 28 and lows of 19. Kakamega is partly cloudy at 16 degrees. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 26. And in Malindi at 24 degrees. Thunderstorms too with highs of 29. It's already raining in Mombasa. It's likely to continue for most of the day. Highs of 29 and lows of 24. It's mostly cloudy in Kampala this morning. We will see highs of 26 with rain expected for later parts of the day. All right, taking a look then into Dar es Salaam. It's 23 degrees and quite sunny. It will be that way through the day with highs of 31. Take a look down south in Johannesburg, where at 7 degrees, it's clear skies, sunny conditions. However, it will be highs of 22 and lows of 7. And finally, for now, in Lagos, clear skies at 25 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 24.
After 7, do you think that the current wayward Jubilee will now to the line dressed down by the president? I'd like to know what you think.
Spice up your life.
Now to the line. Do you think they'll
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Abandon wayward ways, their wayward ways. 0719-012-600, or you can also
mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Met with the MPs. 212 MPs attended, according to their not White House, State House spokesperson, Kanzadena Mararo. And the meeting started with a prayer by Kajiado East MP Peris Tobiko before Party Secretary General Raphael Tuju spoke for 3 minutes and invited the Deputy President, who attended this meeting yesterday, he's the Deputy Party Leader, for all his bravery in leading the boycott of the initial Senate meet. The DP spoke for only 4 minutes. Only, that's a long time. He said all the party's troops are fully behind the command and leadership of President Kenyatta, contrary to the impressions out there. Mheshimiwa, unavyosikia huko nje, don't believe them. Sisi tuko nyuma yako kidete. Tunasimama na wewe kidete. He said all the party troops are fully behind the command and leadership of the president. We thank you, Excellency, for inviting us to this meeting. We've been looking forward to, as a party leader, kindly give us guidance. There's a bab there. We've been looking forward to this meeting. Yeah, because the complaint by the Tanga people has been, we have not even held a PG meeting in so long, because they believed that they had the numbers. They knew that if we held a PG, we are going to run the agenda of the meeting. But when the president took to the lectern, he began by taking the MPs through a 3-dimensional journey of where they have come from, where they are, and where they are headed as a party. An MP from South Rift, who sought anonymity, said after the meeting, the MPs left without talking with each other.
It was not what they expected.
Shock. Shocked
It was
and
not
awe.
what they
I have
expected.
never seen Uhuru talking like that. That was a real dress down. Where? I can't even talk like that to my houseboy. We were really reprimanded. That's a Tanga MP who said that. The lawmaker said the president told them that he had full benefit of intelligence on all the scheming and name-calling that they had visited on him. I still have 2 years. Just respect me for the remaining period, okay? You talk badly about me and you think I don't hear. I have intelligence and I get all that. That's what the angry president said.
Yeah, well, that's the case. I'm telling you, they came with a totally different agenda, and that's what I'm saying.
I think they came knowing that
I don't think
you
they
don't
came
come for
knowing
this
that they were-
meeting.
Yeah, sure.
First of all,
course.
because of what we've seen in the Senate. You
In the
don't attend
Senate.
this meeting, next, disciplinary hearings.
They all attended because they knew that if they hadn't attended, there would have been something else that would happen. However, I don't think the manner in which they were spoken to was expected. And that's why I'm telling you that I don't think that they're going to behave a certain way moving forward because they really want to.
It's fear.
But yes, by nature of the fact that even what they were, they met when they went for this meeting was not expected. You can't suddenly expect that they're going to change their way of thinking and their way of behavior because of a 20-minute dress down. If anything, it is going to be they're going to do it because they're afraid of what would happen if they don't.
Which serves the purpose at the end. The end justifies the means. Right? As long as you toe the line, as long as you respect it for those 2 years, as long as you don't go out there talking the way you've been talking, you can do whatever you want to do behind closed doors and make sure that those doors are completely airtight and soundproof, that my intelligence
Everything
will not
has
get
ears
to
now.
hear, right? You make sure you do that. But in the meantime, I don't want what you guys have been doing. Going around seemingly campaigning for 2022, going around seemingly poking holes at everything that I'm trying to do, raising questions about the government that we are running. Right? Together. And you're going to sound like you're the opposition within the government. We cannot continue like that.
No.
So now the Tanga people have basically toned down. And yesterday we also saw the story had been that the deputy president had met with his troops and they told them, guys, it's okay, just take a back seat, let's retreat, let's allow the president to shape the agenda, and then we shall follow. For how long do we expect this to?
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, when people retreat, they usually then go into a place of solitude or a place of hiding while planning what their next attack would be. And unfortunately, I don't see it, just because of the way government and politics works, having been played by individuals, that you don't see that people are going to be quiet forever. I don't see the deputy, for example, Deputy President William Ruto sitting down and waiting until 2022 and then hoping to see what happens as a result of that. It's very unlikely that that would be the case.
But are you likely to see him coming out in open defiance of the president?
He's done it before.
Because clearly,
he's been doing it.
Earlier,
What's the stop?
Earlier, the deputy president has gone around saying, I am not actually defying what the president has said. You know, publicly, that's what he says. I am not defying what the president has said. The president is running the country. I am his deputy. He's my boss. And he keeps saying, my boss. If my boss tells me to come and inspect a certain project, I'm going to come and inspect that project. Yeah. If my boss sends me here, I'm going to go there. He's my boss.
But look, he took an opportunity to really, he took numerous opportunities to really put it out there in terms of what his intentions were for the next round of elections. And I think the electioneering began quite early on, especially from his quarters. And I think that is what irritated the president, because now out of that was born these factions that we see. Truth be told, that these factions came as a result of this politicking that started. No sooner had they left the blocks, there was already politicking that happened. And then these factions, for which a lot of these individuals got this dressing down that we see yesterday, came as a result of that.
It's because of that. It's because of aligning themselves.
Suddenly people are aligning themselves for a president who is trying to make sure that he has cemented a legacy that he's going to leave behind. We have conversations in this room where we talk about presidents and what they were known for. If you want to look at the presidents of Kenya, him being the fourth, from Kenyatta to Moi to Kibaki, what was it that they left behind? So here he is with 2 years trying to cement a legacy. Now, whatever that legacy is going to be, clearly the big four agenda is out. If his advisors are listening, that one is not going to be part of his legacy because it has not taken off. So if you want to talk about devolution, for example, in terms of what could be, if you want to talk about building bridges between clearly several historically polarized sections of the country, having brought them together to be able to work together towards, unity government. Perhaps those are the things that he's trying to cement. And then in the very place where he's trying to cement this, then you have divisive politics taking place. There's no way he's going to be happy with that.
And the vehicle that he's using, the BBI, is the one that Tanga have basically been going out there saying
this thing is fallacious. I mean, seriously,
BBI is a smokescreen. It's a game
for something else.
We're just being taken for a ride.
So you can imagine, here I am trying to do work. Here I am trying to make sure that I cement these development projects around the country as an agent of the office of the presidency in Kenya. And then the person who is supposed to deputize me, more or less, is politicking outside and essentially trying to break open what I'm going to do. My friend, you'd be pissed off too. You would. And then you have people who maybe are not as verbose as you, or rather people who are more verbose than you are, going about spilling and spreading all kinds of narratives, this, that, and the other thing. People already in full politicking mode, talking about things that shouldn't be the case when he's trying to leave a legacy, when he's trying to get the country moving forward. Come on, man.
For a long time, because of his laid-back nature, sort of, he's very jovial, man. He's always laughing and with very strong handshakes and all. Maybe they assumed that, this man, we can run over him. We can run all over him. And now that he started using his full force of the office, where the kind of purge that we saw first in the Senate, majority leader go, whip go, deputy speaker go, and then he says, now you guys, National Assembly, and you are more, come. Kujeni.
Yeah.
You have seen what I've done? Come. So when they were going there, they were all shaking, not knowing exactly what's going to happen. And we are talking about changing membership of all committees. Membership of committee, that's where you also get sitting allowances. So selfishly speaking, you're looking at, okay, so if I don't sit in a committee, so you must, according to standing orders, you must be a member of a committee. But if you don't sit in a powerful committee, if you're not in a leadership position in a committee, then also your influence wanes. Your influence drops.
It's true.
So this is what they were trying to push for. I'm wondering whether I know for sure that they're going to quiet down for a while. Okay? They're going to quiet down for a while. They're going to sit back, sit at the corner, observe the president, and if he looks the other way, then they start coming up again with all the kind of noises that we've been seeing. But what is it that the president needs to do to ensure that he keeps them on that short leash?
Well, somebody will
keep reminding them all the time.
Or
keep changing the leadership.
Or actually get rid of them. Yes.
You sit there 6 months, you don't look at you out. I'm bringing somebody else.
Yes. Before you had time to form opinions and then convince others of those same opinions, you're gone.
Out.
Yeah.
Next, let's have another leadership.
Yes, and then we move on. And guess what? As you do that, things are being done. Time is being, time is moving. So even if it's with one person now and we're able to move 1-2 steps, bring in somebody else, move. For the purposes of,
previous presidents,
we get something done.
The unfortunate bit about Uhuru is that he does not have many carrots to dangle. Previous presidents had a carrot called cabinet position, right? And he would dangle that all the time. The way Mo used to play those politics of tribes, and not just tribal, but personality politics, was he elevates so-and-so, he fires the other person.
Why wouldn't Uhuru Kenyatta use that as his disposal?
Because he cannot pick any of those members into his cabinet. He cannot reward any loyalist by giving them a
cabinet
flag.
Position. Yeah.
The bandera. You will not be given the bandera or even an assistant minister at any point. So this is one thing that he doesn't have to dangle, unlike the other president who had this. 7:30, let's take a look at traffic or what's happening on the roads, and then we'd like you to join this conversation. 0719-012-600. Do you think the Tanga MPs will now toe the line, and what does the president need to do to keep them on a short leash? Good morning.
All right, yes, it's looking all kinds of crazy on Thika Road this morning. We have one accident already, and that is going to compound issues. And it seems to be the new normal on Thika Road now that everybody is back. Inbound to the CBD on Thika Road is causing quite the headache all the way from Kasarani. And you're being asked to be very careful this morning. And then getting into the CBD from the Globe Cinema roundabout shouldn't be too bad. However, what's happening here is that in Westlands, coming out of the 87 and then down towards Kangemi into and around the Westlands roundabout. It's moving slowly, but it'll get you into the CBD without too much of a headache. Other parts of the city behaving very well, not many issues. Mombasa Road is a bit slow in certain parts, but that's expected for this time of the morning. It'll move along quite swiftly. I don't think we're going to see any hold-ups unless any accidents happen, then for which we will tell you, or you in this case help us with that information. Spice FM KE, that's how you can do just that.
To 8. This is a situation room. Kenya's biggest conversation in the room this morning in the Wakoana. We are looking at the politics of Jubilee Party coalition. The parliamentary group meeting yesterday, where we saw some leadership changes for some committees. Aiden Duale retained his position as majority leader. The deputy majority leader was replaced. The majority whip and deputy majority whip were replaced. The speaker and the deputy speaker were retained. You know, they still got the support of the party leadership. But then the president is reported to have gone into that meeting and not even given an opportunity for a back and forth, a conversation. It was not a conversation. It was a meeting where the leader was coming to set the agenda. And his agenda was very simple. I am not going to tolerate. Enough is enough. I am not going to tolerate any more of your nonsense, any more of your noises, where you go out there and you're insulting me in public and in private, and you think I don't get to hear about it. I have been hearing about it. I've been hearing how you disrespect me. And if you don't even respect me, respect the office. This is the minimum that I expect.
Yep. The
very least, respect the office. And they were all kept quiet. In fact, it says, the story in the Standard, it says the lawmakers were trying to speak, and they wanted to come up and even ask for prayers. Here it is. Attempts by MPs to raise their hands and address the meeting were blocked, with the president dismissing them. Immediately he ended his address. He told us to leave immediately. He finished. Some MPs asked that we have a prayer before, but he told them, just leave. Started with the prayer, did not finish with the prayer. He finished, he got up and said, go.
He's done.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Go. One Tanga MP says, we left that meeting, we're not even talking to one another. Shaking in their boots.
I still go back to that thing of shaking in their boots because of what was said, or shaking in their boots because they were afraid that we might actually get rid of you, right? So I mean, it could be seen as one of the same thing, but I don't know if that is going to make anybody change necessarily. I think a couple of days you're going to see that where maybe there will be a nodding and a clasping of hands whereby respect is being given. But I don't think that is going to change or bring about any kind of permanency when it comes to seeing things actually being done. He's tried for months to be able to get people to see that he's actually doing his job and that what he's focusing on for the country is development.
Yeah,
but then, here, individuals decide to go ahead and do their own thing. They really believed in what they were doing or believed in what it is that they were saying. And I don't think that a 25-minute lecture or addressing down is going to change that or give it any kind of sway. I think if you speak to them this morning, they will probably be in a different kind of, it was addressing down, it was difficult to hear. But I think people have just gone to reset. Reset. I don't see that anything.
But they'll not talk about it publicly. They'll talk
in their own closets or send a message. Hey, Eric, were you in that room? Did you hear what I heard?
What are we going to do?
Kind of thing. What are we going to do about
anafikiri nini?
And there will be a lot of strategizing, I think. There will be a lot of, phone calls being made back and forth. I dare say that there already have been such when people make promises that they will actually toe the line and you don't have to worry about them when it comes to the axe falling on anybody's head. But I think that's why you see the salvation of some individuals and, the sending away of others. And I do think that some have been able to make their case in terms of why they should be left there. And mercy was shown, leniency was given in some cases, but I don't see that.
You don't see them towing the line?
No.
I think,
this is politics. Everybody's there for their own interests. This is politics. So the president can say what he wants to say today.
I don't think they'll now sit and stop their support for William Ruto.
No, I don't see that either.
As long as William Ruto still keeps a direct line with them, as long as William Ruto plays his cards right, and he still calls his troops and calls them, how you guys doing? Kujeni tukule nyama hapa Karen kidogo. He sits down with them, they talk. He still makes them feel that they are important and recognized. Because this is one thing that the president is not going to do. I don't expect the president is going to call Susan Keheka to State House and say, come, Susan, let's have tea.
Lunch.
No way. I don't expect it to happen. Or the Bahati MP that is being called to State House. No way. I don't expect that to happen. So as long as Ruto can still call them and still have that conversation with them, they'll still maintain their allegiance to Ruto. But publicly, they will not go to a church service.
Like they used
to. Or like we see Kimani Ngunjiri calling a press conference and just talking, I do not expect to see Kimani Ngunjiri doing that for a while at least.
I think there's going to be respect and support still for the deputy president. Like you said, I don't think it'll be overt. I don't think that people are going to be running around in the manner in which they have before, keeping that warning in mind. And see, that's the thing. Keeping the warning in mind is not so that they go against what the president said, but keeping the warning in mind so that they don't lose these plum positions of power, regardless of what it is. So I don't think it's necessarily that they heard what he said and say, hey, actually, we've been errant in our ways. Let's come about it. No. It's about, okay, this position that I have, I don't want to lose it. So this thing that he has said, let me listen for all of the 5 minutes that's needed before they forget and move on to something else.
So publicly, they will not be openly defying the president.
Probably not.
Silently, they'll continue with their caucusing and rallying around the deputy president and trying to milk the much that they can from the deputy president.
Yeah, look, these guys have a creed, right?
They will, but you see, if the president then starts cracking the whip and saying, okay, I don't really care. I don't want this grouping called Tanga Tanga. I want to disrupt this grouping called Tanga Tanga. Then, what happens to them? Sit there like any other member of parliament. We have
you're not selected.
Either align yourself to me directly, to the other party leaders, Raila, Kalonzo, now that we are cooperating, or Gideon Moi, now that we are cooperating with these parties, but not Ruto.
No,
I also don't see the president going that far.
I think the wound cut quite deep. Unfortunately,
really?
Yes, I do. I think it cut quite deep, and it's not something that he's about to forget. It was that you would go. We were in this thing together, but that you've shown me that from the beginning. Essentially, you were not. So I'm just going to tell these boys and girls what it is that they need to do, or how they need to operate, or we will get rid of them. And he's not afraid to say it.
He is not.
He may have used other words, but he's basically saying
he's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We'll speak to political commentator Dismas Mokua shortly, as also we are picking a call 0719012600. Gordon in Kasarani. Good morning.
Morning, Latif.
How are you, Gordon?
I'm good. Ndu Oko.
Yes.
Morning, Ndu.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Yes.
Gordon, what do you think? Will the Tanga Tanga MPs now toe the line?
You see, this is not the first time the president is showing anger publicly. And I really support the president. He's showed leadership. But for anger, is not a good thing publicly. Yeah, you should restrain his anger. I used to like how Kibaki used to deal publicly. You could never see emotion.
However, this was not public. This was in a closed door meeting.
But it is now out here that he showed some anger.
Yeah,
we know about it.
How should he have conducted himself if we go with what you're saying?
Okay, maybe if he has issues with particular members of Jubilee, he can arrange for forums.
With
face-to-face.
With individual members.
Let them air their views and you should at least give them some hearing. And at his positions, there are things he can afford to ignore. And just show that he's concentrating on his leadership agenda, what he means for the country, the way Kibaki used to do. Kibaki would just focus on his developmental issues, agenda, and then he never showed that he's angry with anybody.
Yeah.
And he would even tell us in public, na tusionyeshe hasira kwa mtu yeyote yule. Na tusitukane mtu yeyote. Na hakuna haja. And then he proceeds with what, that kind of leadership, I think, used to be very good. But
so you prefer that style?
The president, there's a time even in Kasarani here, he just went to vernacular and he raved and ranted and he went on and on in vernacular, and it was not very good because it was aired on television, and it was even on social media. It is still on YouTube that he spoke for like over 5 minutes in mother tongue.
So and do you think it's necessary then for him to ignore all of these things that are going on and just focus on this work that he says is necessary to be done?
And isn't that what he's been doing for the last 2 years?
He's been quiet. We haven't heard him speak in this manner.
Okay. Even there's a time more you said that if you push me to the wall and then I turn, you better run. He said that at one point, and he could also show some anger publicly. Moi also used to show anger. But I think Kibaki's style of leadership in terms of emotions was the best. He really used to manage and control his emotion in a very presidential way.
Despite the public perception at the time, because you remember at that time when everybody else would say, oh, Kibaki is a fence-sitter, Kibaki is aloof, Kibaki seems not to be aware of what's happening around him, simply because he was ignoring all the noises.
But I think sometimes as a leader, you cannot afford to get people to like you and maybe play some populist politics, and you want to be a favorite. You just have issues to deal with, and you concentrate on that, getting the country to the next level. So I think,
Asante sana for your contribution.
Oh, I appreciate. Thank you for getting me on air.
All right. Have a good day in Kasarani. Let's now bring in the political commentator. Dismas Mokua, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You've heard what we're talking about. You've even heard what Gordon has just said. Dismas, do you think, let's start with, first of all, that style of, do you think it was a good style, the good approach to use? Call the members of parliament to State House. Some of them have just been basically sort of trying to run like their own parallel government. Call them in and tell them, look, this is the way and the only way.
Absolutely. When you join any political party in Kenya, or indeed any grouping, the rules of entry are very clear. These are we do things in this homestead. And you sign into the rules and you say, I shall be loyal. Now, when you join any political party, especially just before the election, they normally sign some contracts that they're going to be loyal to the political party and they're going to be loyal to the political party leadership. And they agree that as a political party, they'll caucus, they take a position in a closed doors, but when they go public, they're just going to dance to one tune, one drum beat. So it's unacceptable for any political party member that having agreed on a certain position in a closed door meeting, be it a State House at KCC, then you come out, you start expressing divergent views. If you're unhappy with what you've agreed upon at a State House and you think the president is a dictator or a bully, then just maintain your peace, keep quiet, get some ice cubes in your mouth, you keep quiet, or you just resign from the
or leave the party.
Yeah, just leave the party. But it's unacceptable for you to be a member, say, of ODM or ANC or Jubilee, and you spend 90% of your time saying the president is a dictator, or Musalia Mudavadi is a dictator, or Raila is a dictator. Then why are you a member of that political party? And it's important to note the majority of these people gain political office not because of their own popularity, but because of the party leader and the party in general.
Actually, they've been going around, Dismas, saying it's the other way around.
It cannot be.
We have heard very many MPs saying, we campaigned for this person. We campaigned. We spent sleepless nights. We walked in the mud and in the rain. We campaigned. We tried to convince people that the only way, the best way to have Kenya running is by you electing Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto into the top office. And even when the Supreme Court told us to go back, we went back and still campaigned again. Even after securing our own offices, we went back and campaigned again for these two gentlemen. And now he's standing back on us and behaving as if we did not contribute to that.
Let's take the example of President Kenyatta and Central Kenya.
Yeah.
It's true that they campaigned for the elective positions, but who gave them the logistics? Who gave them resources to run around? I mean, majority of these people get elected not on the strength of their own popularity or their grassroots mobilization, but for a political party. That's why you never get somebody from, say, ODM running in Gatundu, because you know the moment you show the ODM brand in Gatundu, you'll get 2 votes.
Yep.
Yeah, so people should just call a spade and agree that if you think a political party is going to be a bit of a challenge for you, then go run as an independent. When you run as an independent, you can go to any house, and then you call a spade. You speak your mind. But if you're going to be a member of any political party, any organization, you must be ready to go with the rules. It's just fair. It's like when you visit somebody's homestead, and the president said this other day, if you're expected to remove your shoes,
you remove your shoes.
Yeah, but if you think it's going to be a bit of a challenge for you, don't even bother. Can you imagine you put up a top-of-the-range building, and then your guests come in and they're smoking in the living room, they convert the kitchen into a bathroom. I mean, as a host, can you accept these kind of things? You'll kick people out. But now we need to ask ourselves, whatever President Kenyatta is doing today for ODM, and whatever Raila Odinga, President Kenyatta is doing at Jubilee, yes, and Raila Odinga for ODM, I think the question we need to keep on asking ourselves every single day, whose interests are they actually serving? Are they serving Amina's interest so that they work on our socio-economic prosperity? Because we've been told times above number, this is for prosperity, shared prosperity for all Kenyans. Are we seeing this in our bank balances, in our socio-economic life? Or these leaders are instilling party discipline in the various political parties to serve their selfish interests? And I think the biggest question we need to ask ourselves every single day the sun comes from the east, are the leaders' selfish interests consistent with our national and public interest?
I don't mind to tell you that they could be intertwined. You see, for me to be able to push an agenda that will serve you, I have got to ensure that I am able to push that agenda. So the first thing that I do is to secure my position so that, secure my position in the team so that I can help the team win.
Absolutely. Like, for instance, I know what the president said the other day, that we are going to have a referendum.
Yep.
He doesn't want Kenya to have violence every election.
Yep.
That is absolutely something which is welcome. But in pushing that agenda, is it consistent with Kenyans' interest? Yes. But is the outcome going to favor every single Kenya, or in the process, the byproducts are going to favor a few Kenyans, and then the rest of the Kenyans are going to remain wallowed in misery? And I think those are the biggest questions we need to ask ourselves, because, politicians are very, very crafty human beings. It's not easy, even if you run for elections in high school as a prefect or a monitor, it's not very easy to get 10 people to line up and vote for you.
This is true.
But when you get somebody like President Kenyatta with up to 7 million people waking up early in the morning during the rains, people leaving their hospitals to come and vote, those are very, very powerful people. So we should be reading whatever they're telling us with a lot of interest and keep on asking ourselves, in the process of changing the constitution, doing a few amendments, who is actually the primary beneficiary? Out of the maybe 10 sets of amendments, are these 10 amendments benefiting Amura, or 9 amendments are going to benefit President Kenyatta and his brother Raila Odinga, and the other Kenyans benefit from only 1 amendment? Those are the questions I think we need to ask ourselves.
Didmus, out of what happened yesterday, do you think then that we're going to see individuals towing the line? I mean, because it was clear that the stance of the government was, or rather the stance of the president was that basically, I'm not going to take this nonsense anymore. And we've been of the opinion that we will see a change. However, it will not be because they want to change. It will be because they don't want to be on the periphery of government and leadership, as it were. December, do you see that we will see a different kind of towing of the line?
Well, the president now has inflicted pain and pleasure in very good amounts at his pleasure. And believe you me, all these MPs, members of the National Assembly and Senate, will be dancing to the president's drumbeat as he deems fit. You remember the prior meeting for Jubilee Parliamentary Group for the senators? It was about 50% turnout.
Yep.
The one for yesterday was 96% turnout. And the National Assembly has got many more members than the Senate.
Yep.
It seems the case that for yesterday's meeting, nobody missed a text message. Everybody had their
everybody received theirs. Yeah.
Everybody. And
even those on postpaid.
Even those ones on postpaid. And nobody, for the first time, nobody was asking yesterday, give us evidence of this meeting. Give us pictures. Give us signatures. So I think after the meeting yesterday, everybody is going to be, straight and narrow. But again, the question we need to ask ourselves, during that meeting, what happened? Did the members actually have the opportunity to air their views, or
no,
it
they
was
didn't.
A monologue?
That we know, that they didn't have an opportunity to air their views.
Now that they didn't have the opportunity to air their views and they received, mother tongue, we say, Msomo. Is this Msomo consistent with our expectations? When the president says, I want you to go to the National Assembly and dance to my tune, is that tune consistent with our expectations? Or the president is just driving his selfish agenda? And I think that's what we need to ask ourselves. But making progress, in future as a nation, we should be forming political parties anchored on ideologies, so that it's not the personality driving the agenda. Because now President Kenyatta is driving the agenda based on his ideas.
It seems that in order for that to happen, Didmus, you're going to have to clear the whole lot of them out. I mean, if we want to, if we talk about political parties then practicing based on ideology, it doesn't happen here. And in order for that to happen, all the individuals, the personalities upon which politics is played, seems to me that you're going to have to clear the whole lot of them out in order to start then political practice based on ideology.
Yeah, probably 100%. Because when you look at other mature economies, like if it's maybe the conservatives or the liberals, if they're discussing an idea, maybe they would be asking themselves, how much government do you want in people's lives? And then that's what they're discussing. And their loyalty is to a philosophy or an ideology. But here, our loyalty is to a personality, to an individual. So that even if, when they were receiving them somewhere yesterday, in the event that the president is wrong, nobody would have the guts to say, Your Excellency, I've got a divergent view. The moment you say that, Tuju and company are watching you, the following day you are going to be summoned for a grilling meeting, and you'll be required to show cause as to why you can't be whipped, expelled, or even kicked out of the party unceremoniously. So that's what we need to guard. Politicians are very good people. They're powerful human beings. And we are told from economics, it's not always the case that their selfish interests are consistent with public and national interests. So what happens if a politician is so strong, like now President Kenyatta has demonstrated with his political party, that nobody has got capacity to tell him, Mr. President, you are wrong. Everybody's going to be, now they're like ducks.
Capacity or guts?
One needs row.
Capacity or guts?
I think both. Because you see, if you're attending the parliamentary meeting yesterday for members of the National Assembly, and you know what has happened to Kipchumba Murkomen, Susan Kiika, and Kithure Kindike, you'll be very, very careful on what you're going to say. And I suspect majority of the people who attended yesterday was purposes of signing the attendance sheet. That I was here. Please don't pick me out.
Don't pick me out.
But the decisions had already been taken. But so now let's ask ourselves.
As we keep asking ourselves these questions, whose interest is a politician serving? Let's also remember that every politician is first and foremost serving their interests. Even the leaders of the political parties in those developed economies, in developed democracies, each individual leader is serving their interests first and foremost, and then the political party's interest is secondary. Maybe what we should also be asking ourselves is, do we need to consider the whole political... We have not had political parties that are strong enough. It's actually always personality politics. And Siti Muga keeps reminding us that, the ideology of the person is the party's ideology. Let's stop mixing ourselves up with, what's the ideology? Like the parties don't have ideology. Maybe we should just focus on that. Like we talk about, okay, so if we have a strong leader called Uhuru Kenyatta, and then he's been able to rally these people around him, and because of his influence, people have been able to be elected into parliament. But when they get there, they also have their own principles. I know that this is what I stand for. I stand for right. I stand for to ensure that Wanjiku gets the benefits of electing me into office as a member of parliament. If the president is going taking a different direction, you should be able to have the guts on principle to stand up and say, you know what, I listen to you, Mr. President, but also at the same time, I think you're going wrong. You don't have to go to a church service to say that. You can find other avenues, like in Parliament, and standing up and saying, on principle, this is why I'm not comfortable with this direction or with this bill or with this policy that has been brought here.
The only person who has ever done that with success is Raila Odinga. When he was leaving Ford Kenya, he said he was unhappy with the ideologies or maybe the personality leading the party then. Then he formed his own political party and he went to win a seat. Then maybe I guess what you need to do when you're going for the election, just look at somebody among all the elected leaders whose personal ideologies approximates our national and public interest.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to run with somebody, I mean, and again, we call a spade a spade. Majority of the party leaders are essentially tribal chiefs.
Yeah.
People have been able to mobilize their tribal numbers, and then they go to their National Assembly or Senate. They beat up everybody into one straight queue, and then they become very powerful people. We should actually be blaming ourselves.
I see it a bit difficult then to call out an individual, regardless of who it is, whether it's a president or your colleague or whomever, to call out someone then on principle when you have been operating on non-principle all along. I see that's where the difficulty would be. To be able to then call somebody out and say, I don't think you're going in the right direction, where your practice, you as an individual, and if you want to look at members of parliament or other leaders, where you as a matter as a matter of principle, or rather as a matter of operation, you have not operated on principle. So I see that as the reason why a lot of this calling out would not happen, because the practice has not been based on principle. So it's difficult then to call someone out on the same principle.
Well, I think we should give our politicians the benefits of doubt. And you remember in the Bible we are told that Damascus moment when Saul becomes Paul. And we are also told that it's only wise people who keep on changing their positions or minds on issues. For me, I don't see anything wrong. Because again, when these guys are in the campaign process, it's all promises. Yeah. Everything is painted in a very rosy manner. Yeah. But after 1 year, if you realize that these politicians' personal ideology is going on the extreme, I see nothing wrong in calling them out. But again, in calling them out, you do it with decorum.
Yeah.
Because we've seen a number of Tanga people hurling all manner of insults. We are told that there is a bar at State House. People are being accused of not taking coffee. Instead, they're taking alcoholic beverages.
Yeah.
You cannot expect the head of a political party to pay attention to what you are saying if you're insulting him.
This way, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But if you go to the National Assembly or Senate or these parliamentary group meetings and you've got a reasoned position, it can be listened to. You can even caucus within the National Assembly and Senate. Stop caucusing at churches and funerals.
True.
Caucus within the National Assembly. Come up with a piece of legislation, an amazing piece of legislation, a eureka piece of legislation. Present to the president. If he refuses to sign it into law, then you say you've tried your level best.
True.
And if you come up with a good piece of legislation, even if the president refuses to sign it, I think there's a default setting that it becomes law within a certain number of days.
Yeah.
But here, majority of these guys we've elected to the National Assembly and Senate, they're super active outside
elsewhere.
The houses. Yeah, they're super active.
Thank you very much for speaking to us today. Asante sana for picking our call and giving us your insights into this conversation.
Thank you very much.
As we come to the top of the hour, let me give you today's proverb, Dismas. It's from Mali. And it says, if you know that you don't know, you will know. If you do not know that you do not know, you will not know.
You mean translate that to kiss for me to understand?
I know you need a minute with that one.
All right, Dismas, have a good day. Thank you. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
We know that Thika Road is back to normal on the Highway, it's crazy today. Just before the Utali Drift, so much traffic, guys, absolutely packed. And we also know that parts of Kirinyaga Road are being repaired, so that means that traffic has slowed down there. Okay, so if you want to describe Thika Road and what it is this morning, it's an absolute mess and a complete parking lot out towards the CBD. You're not getting through there anytime soon. So, hunker down and take it easy. It's going to take you some time. Kiambu Road then joins the foray, Muthaiga Corner, and then getting to Thika Road is going to be terrible today. And it's just about 8 o'clock. Hopefully it will not last too long as we try to get out there. All right, Ngong Road is moving smoothly today, and then you can connect with all sorts of places from there. Not too much traffic, rather. And it's all right to use that option. The southern and eastern bypass is open, and anybody can use them right now. We don't have incidents or accidents there today, so that is good news. Getting to the CBD from Jogo Road to the City Stadium roundabout, not too bad, but then it's moving slowly, right bumper to bumper on that road there, getting into the CBD. Let us know what you see. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. New
Spice FM this morning, and every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this week is Nduoko and Eric Latif. Broadcasting on 94.4 in Nairobi. We are in Malindi, Nyeri, Eldoret, Nakuru, Kisumu, Mombasa, worldwide on www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You can watch the show. This is the first and only radio station that has 24 hours of live streaming on video and audio on our digital platforms. So we've got cameras and lights in the studio. You can watch actually the show every day. Let's talk about what's happening in these curfew days. All right. So we're waiting for the 6th of June to see whether the curfew is going to be lifted. I personally do not believe that the curfew is going to be lifted entirely. I think the curfew hours are just going to be reduced, maybe start a bit later or end a bit later. No, they cannot end a bit later. So it's still going to end at 5 a.m. Mm-hmm. But maybe start at 9, like the private sector has been pushing. The cessation of movement is still going to stay in force. However, we have seen the kind of behavior from police officers over this period, and there has been uproar with the latest incident, especially in Mathare, where a homeless man was shot dead by the police, and the residents came out complaining and said, "Come on, guys, you expect this man to be indoors? He sleeps outdoors." Number one. Number two, why must you shoot the person? Why must you shoot them? And if you're police officers who operate in this area, obviously you know this person sleeps outdoors. It's not that you are new to Jerusalem. You've been operating here. You therefore definitely know this person. So what exactly is it that happened in Mathare? And why would we see such incidences? Why would we see police officers shooting in the air to make people go back in? And it's not the only place. We see in all the other places, especially those that are densely populated. When it comes to 7 p.m., the enforcement of this curfew is via heavy-handed. And even in the areas like Isli, we heard complaints initially. When the enforcement of the lockdown of Isli was happening, the same thing, enforcement of lockdown in Old Town in Mombasa was happening. We see this all the time. Number of people who've died over the last couple of weeks just from the hands of police officers or from the bullets fired by police officers is high.
It is high.
What's the problem?
Unfortunately, this has all been, connected to, measures to contain individuals because of curfew. It's not just unlawful. It is counterproductive in fighting the spread of the virus, if we want to look at it. If we are just going to look at police brutality within the confines of COVID-19, it is counterproductive to fighting the spread. This brutality that we see, this is what happens, is that now people become afraid, number one, or they become resilient and say that because of what is happening, we're going to come out and protest. And you see how that would then affect the spread of the disease, is that people are going to come out and say, you know what, this is enough. We cannot have this.
So there's a pushback.
So there definitely will be pushback. So it's either one of the two. And it's unfortunate that we see police brutality in this time when everybody should be rallying around trying to make sure that as few people as possible get the disease and other people are protected. And unfortunately, this is what we are seeing. Another unfortunate part about all of this is that police brutality did not start in the times of COVID. We've had human rights groups who've been fighting, who've been asking questions, who've been saying that this cannot be the way in which police operate. It is supposed to be a position of service to and for the people of the country, right? To be able to lift a weapon and take a life because somebody was not indoors at a certain time should not be the course of action. I mean, I can't see anybody taking a different view. It should not be. And that's why I continue to say that how it is meted upon people, this police brutality, the brutality that we see against citizens, is not a decision that somebody takes every time something like this happens. It is a way of life. It is a system of doing things. It is a conditioning. It is an understanding of this is what the police are actually supposed to do. And that's why they do it.
So it's a system. The
yes,
system
it's not a decision. It's not a decision that
set
people
up to
take.
behave this way.
Yes, they are conditioned, practiced, and that's what they understand. We look at the question. If somebody sees you 3 minutes to 7 right now on the streets of Nairobi today, it's not, is everything okay? It's that you're already breaking the law.
Yeah.
And that they come at you in a punitive manner already without asking a question. The assumption is that you're misbehaving or doing something out of order and you must be punished. Now, if it escalates into something else, it just happens to be that circumstances force that to happen. But already the stance is that you're doing something wrong. If your vehicle is on the road past 7 o'clock, is that you're doing something wrong without them having asked the question.
And you deliberately intended to be.
I talked to 2 journalists in this organization who say, forget it, man. Whether you have the pass or not, they're not going to ask you where you're going. They're not going to ask you if they can see your ID and maybe you are essential services, for example. It's already that you're doing something wrong. It's already that you're doing something wrong.
That's the first treatment.
Supermarkets, when this started, were deemed essential services, right?
Yep.
Supermarkets started closing at 5 o'clock after. And why is this? Because individuals who work for these organizations started being harassed by police. And so their management had to say, then we're going to close early so that you guys can get home.
So we give you enough time to get home before the curfew.
Yes. So you can imagine, and who were they being harassed by? Police. We're seeing young children being killed. We see, and unfortunately, we see this brutality spike when circumstances are different. Election violence, this happened. Any time of election, we see this going on, whereby we see uprisings or we see surges in crime and things like that. We see police brutality again. But then we're starting to see that it is a way of life. Even beyond these circumstances of COVID and curfew and such, it's a way of life. And that people think that naturally the police are supposed to, or do this naturally. And it shouldn't be the case.
There are organizations that have been pushing for police reforms in the country for many years. And these organizations include the human rights organizations. One of them is the Independent Medical Legal Unit. It has been pushing for, better treatment, especially by police officers and correctional officers as well, because it has also worked with the prison service and looking at the treatment of people in prison facilities across the country over many years. Peter Kiama is the Executive Director of the Independent Medical Legal Unit, and he now joins us on the line. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Peter.
Morning, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Now, Peter, we are seeing, well, we cannot even say a re-emergence. We cannot even say a spike. We are seeing a continuation of police acting outside the law. With just this particular one case of the man who was shot dead in Mathare. And there are very many others. During this curfew period, the enforcement of the curfew, we see cases all the time of either police have shot dead somebody accidentally or either intentionally, or police have beaten up somebody to a point where they need to be taken to hospital. As an organization that deals with this, I mean, are you seeing anything different from what you see any other time?
No, we are not seeing, unfortunately, we are not seeing anything different. As you have just mentioned, this is a continuation of the same. It looks like, the police are on the same default mode where force is the default mode of policing. Which is a very unfortunate situation, when you consider the investment we have made in police reforms in this country for the last almost 10 years now.
Yep.
We are in the 9th year of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and when you look at what we can celebrate as achievements in police reforms, and if the barometer is, the use of force or lack of it, then I think the police have failed the test. If you give me a minute just to expound on that particular point.
Yes, please.
We did a study covering 5 years, 2009 to 2013. We went to 7 mortuaries in the country, the 7 major mortuaries in the country, and we looked at cases of death from bullets, homicide. And these records in the mortuaries are police records and pathologist records, so they are government records.
Yep.
And we covered 1,873 deaths from bullets.
Wow.
Now, what was shocking for us, at that particular point, the police narrative was that the police shoot people dead because they are killing people.
Yep.
And when we went into that data and we did the analysis with the experts in that field, we found that out of the 1873 cases, 67% were people who had died from police bullets. And only 13.9% had died from guns by criminals. Okay. I mean, criminals who are not police officers.
Yep.
And so since then, we've been tracking, killings by police from 2013 all the way for the last 7 years. And we have approximately 1,000 people dead from police bullets. Of course, some of them are from strangulation.
Yeah.
Others are from drowning and other means.
So this is specific to police bullets.
Police bullets, yes.
Shot dead by a police officer.
Shot dead. A good number of them executed for no reason at all.
Yeah.
When we look at that study of 2009 to 2013, you find that 92% of the people who died from bullets at that time died at the scene of shooting. So there was intentional killing in most of the cases, because you expect that if police are shooting to prevent a crime or to protect themselves, then most likely maybe not even 50% of the people who die, because it is preventive.
Yeah.
It's not an execution. But this particular study, 92% died at the shooting.
So it was
not in hospital.
Shoots to kill, basically.
No, exactly. That's the indication there from the expert analysis. Now, since 2013, we have an average of 140 cases of people killed by the police. If I take you down that road, you find that 2013, 143, 2014, 199, 2015, 126, 2016, 144. So you can see the numbers. Yeah. The numbers scary. It's like a country at war with each other, like with the police.
And
or the police at war with the people.
The justification by police officers in all these cases, when they're recording that this person has died, what is it that is entered in the OB?
Now, when you look at the records, because I would like to go by data, if you look at the record going by that study we did in the mortuary, in 48% of the reports the police filed, they did not indicate the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a lack of accountability on the side of the police service.
Yes.
They should be able to indicate in every case what were the circumstances of the killing that they did.
Yep.
Actually, from 2011, they're supposed to report to IPOA every case of an injury or a death, arising from an encounter with citizens.
Peter, do you think this happens? Let's just, let's look at it really critically now. Do you think that every death that occurs as a result of police officers expending their weapons is reported to IPOA, for example?
No. I can go on record to say that not every case is reported.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the first 6 years of IPOA, if you look at the end term report of the IPOA board, the first 6 years, one of the highlights of that report by the board when they were handing over is the difficulty in getting reports from police in every incident of injury or death.
Mm-hmm.
And
the numbers are worrying. I think the chronology that you've given us in the last 2 minutes, when you've gone from year to year, we've seen an increase in the deaths of people at the hand of the police. Now, I find it difficult to justify any death, regardless of what it was. I know we have some times whereby we would say it would be an armed robbery or things like that, and then death occurs. But I think when we're looking at brutality, then we're looking at individuals then who may have been caught in a difficult circumstance, such as the COVID curfew times that we're looking at. And if we go back to IPOA is already reporting 15 deaths and 31 injuries at the hand of police just during COVID times as a result of the curfew measures that have been put in place.
Yeah.
Now, it seems so difficult to be able to get the correct information. And if it is so hard to get the right information about what has happened, wouldn't it be even more difficult to get any kind of prosecutorial measures then put in place?
Yes, that is the case. And I would like to commend Kenyans, especially during this period of the COVID-19, because we have seen an increase in citizen journalism, which has really helped because of limitation in movements of oversight bodies, NGOs like ourselves. We are not able to move out of Nairobi. Citizens have really come forward and defended their rights through documentation and posting on social media. That has really helped. So I'd like to commend citizens for remaining vigilant, because as we say, the price of democracy is eternal vigilance, and they have done quite well. So I'd like to commend them on that. Now, the most difficult thing is that when the police violate the people, like for example, if they shoot somebody dead, they are the same ones who are in charge of the scene of crime. They are the ones who are in charge of taking away the body.
Exactly.
And therefore, so much evidence is lost.
Yep.
By the time the pathologist comes to do a post-mortem, which we usually support families to do, so much evidence is lost. Because the pathologist needs to see, the forensic expert needs to examine the scene of crime. We, lobbied for a new law to set up the National Coroner Service, and the President sent it to a new law called the National Coroner Service Act 2017. The government has not implemented that particular law in terms of setting up the National Coroner Service, which would have taken over independent forensic investigations in cases of suspicious death or reportable death under that law. So we end up losing a lot of information that would help institutions like IPOA or the ODPP in terms of gathering adequate evidence to be able to hold the police to account. So there are those kind of gaps that are there, but there's also the overall culture of protecting each other. among the boys. Well, we have girls in the National Police Service, but the culture, it's we protect each other. That's a pervading culture across the service, which is quite unfortunate because we have recognized in our interactions with the police, they are very dedicated police officers. They are reform-minded police officers, but they are intimidated by the culture of impunity, and that the fact that the institution allows that to continue.
Yeah.
Then the reform-minded ones are not able to go, the extra mile to ensure that we have a professional police service.
And Peter, now if we look back at Kenyans got to a point where they realized that the problem with police brutality was systemic. And with the enactment of a new constitution, when the constitution was being drafted, among the things that were very clear in that constitution was that we're going to have police reforms. We're going to reform the police force to make it a police service. We're going to tear down the old system and put up a new system. And now we are saying that 10 years of implementing that constitution, even with all the activities that have gone into police reforms, we talk about the setting up of the Police Service Commission. The Police Service Commission, that team led by Kavuludi, went and reviewed all serving police officers and sort of audited them and their performance in office and retained those that were considered good apples, and the bad apples were removed. We also set up IPOA, a completely independent authority that has civilians in it that sort of looks at the operations of the police service. The police themselves have the internal affairs unit.
Yeah.
And we're saying that with all these things, we still have not moved much. We are still seeing cases where the police service is operating as if it has absolutely no oversight. What's the problem?
Now, there are problems at several levels. Number one, you have put it rightly that we have been able to, establish the legal infrastructure. We have those three laws that set up IPOA, set up a national police service, gave the Inspector General more independence of command, provided more budgetary support to the police, set up the independent policing oversight authority and internal affairs. We've done well so far in that regard. In September 2018, the President reorganized the command structure to streamline the command of the National Police Service and clearly, articulated his vision for reforms in the National Police Service with regard to professionalism and accountability and quality service, and also public participation in policing. That was clearly articulated in September in a document issued by the President in September 2018. Now, the unfortunate thing is that where we are failing now is the attitude change, the software of the police. We must work on the software. We have a new, 1 year old now, Inspector General, who, we sat with in his first 100 days, and he committed to protection of human rights in policing. He committed to hold the officers to account. Now, what you see is an open defiance across the country of the Inspector General's vision. What you see is an open defiance across the country by some police officers.
But at the same time, Peter, I would assume that when IG Mutiambai took office, you had this meeting with him. When Boynet took office as IG, I am assuming that you also had a meeting with him, and he also had the same kind of commitments and the same kind of vision of a police service that is more responsive to the needs of the public. However, it appears to me like the commitments that are made in boardrooms vis-a-vis the actual practice are completely different.
Now, remember that. No, I think I would agree with you that, and that's why I'm using now the word defiance. I have not used that before. At the start of the COVID-19 measures that were put in place, the restriction of movement, the curfew, and other measures, the Inspector General articulated his position by issuing guidelines that were supposed to help the police to enforce the measures while respecting human rights. Now, we have seen that in over 15 counties so far, we have documented 51 cases of police violations, including 18 deaths and 33 cases of torture and ill treatment that are completely contrary to the guidelines issued by the Inspector General. Okay?
And this is in what period, Peter?
Just during the curfew.
This is during the curfew, right?
During the curfew, yes. Between the 16th of March and 31st of May. So we haven't even included the ones that, the first 3 days of the month, this month, which we are still following up on. And these are cases where we've even done postmortems and looked at the injuries that were caused by the police, either through bullets or through other means, including assault on health workers who are legitimately out there, trying to support us to save our lives from COVID-19. So what we have seen is, across these cases, is a total defiance of the guidelines issued by the Inspector General. Now, why is that happening? My opinion on this is that this is happening because the system allows it to happen. The police are doing this. Those police officers who are violating the law are doing this because they know they can get away with it.
Yes.
A few will be caught, of course. A few will be caught, like we have seen now with the the Kijana Yasin Moyo. May God rest his soul in peace. We'll see a few, not escape, but the majority of them are going to escape. Why? Because the system allows it. The system. I'll tell you, I have interacted with the police officers because they live among us. And what I hear them say about the curfew is, Wakenya wanaelewa fujo tu. Wakenya hawaelewi mundomo.
It's the only language.
That is the attitude. That the only language Kenyans understand is force, brutal force. Now, for me, that is a misnomer because we have seen Kenyans comply with other measures across the country without any force.
True.
But the fact that the police use force, they actually legitimize force and make themselves a legitimate target from citizens as well. Because we have seen, unfortunately, citizens attack the police, which we don't support. But by the police, meting out brutal force against citizens, they themselves make themselves a legitimate target for citizen violence.
You mentioned...
Which is not... Sorry.
You mentioned something there, Peter. You talked about the system not willing to change. And I want to put it to you that even when the IG of police is coming up with the modus operandi on this is how we're going to operate during this curfew, and publicly telling us this, when he retreats to the office, he just throws it somewhere on the shelf because he also knows that it's not going to be followed. So I'm sitting here just having this thought that even the IG of police is not 100% committed to seeing reforms. So yes, he may have a bit of willingness to see some reforms, but he's not 100% committed. That's the reason why, for example, we don't see the IG of police demanding immediate action on the 18 deaths or 33 torture, or even coming out to publicly say, look, I want to come here again and speak publicly and tell all the officers across the country, this is what I said at the beginning, and this is what you are doing, and you're not following the law. And anyone who violates this, you're going to face the disciplinary measures. However, we don't see this. So that's why I'm putting it to you that I think even at the top level, beyond even the IG to the bosses above that, the system is not willing to change.
I would agree with you. Remember that the current practice and attitudes within the service benefit, to a large extent, a good number of officers. Whether it is extortion, bribery, violence. We have seen officers who have been involved in violence, and the evidence is there, in killings, the evidence is there, and they are promoted. We saw just before the vetting of the National Police Service vetting exercise, which miserably failed. We saw specific officers being promoted just before to senior ranks to protect them. Those are police officers whose complaints had been raised against and required to be investigated. We just saw the other day a particular officer who was an OCS in a particular station in Nairobi, in Kabete police station, who is alleged to have killed a suspect in custody.
Mm-hmm.
We raised the issue. The officer, was given accommodation in 2014. Mm-hmm. The other day, I caught up with him. He's now been charged with murder, in another jurisdiction within Machakos County.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cover-up within the service, which I think I would say the buck stops at the desk of the Inspector General. We have given the Inspector General the benefit of doubt, and in this case, you have not seen us go out condemning him or asking him to resign in the last 70 days. What we've done is, as IMLU, we have sent a petition to the Inspector General on these cases with the details of the suspect, of the victims, with the names of the police stations, with the OB numbers. 3 weeks since we sent the petition, he has not responded.
That should tell you something.
It's either he's ignored. And look, if you want to look at it plainly, just based on what you said, either it's being ignored because the culture and practice has been that nothing is going to be done, and that they can behave in the way in which they please, and knowing very well that nobody's going to ask questions and any kind of procedure is not going to be followed.
Yeah, I think for us as IMLU, we do feel that more can be done. More can be done, especially not even to hold people to account, to ensure that nobody dies from a police encounter unnecessarily. Because the police have been given the power to use the gun.
Yeah.
But only in 2 instances, to protect their life or to protect the life of another person. The police went to Parliament and secured an amendment to the law to allow them to shoot to kill or to use lethal force to protect property.
Yeah.
But we have gone to court with other civil society organizations to contest that, because we do not feel that somebody should die, because
property
they were snatching a phone.
Yeah.
They were snatching a phone, unless they were using violence that would threaten the life of another person. But not to protect, the windscreen of a vehicle or the side mirror of a vehicle, as we have seen in instances in the CBD.
Or somebody's piece of land.
Precisely. I mean, there's no reason why we should be, we should prioritize other things above the right to life.
Yeah. Peter, let's take a break, take a look at traffic, and then we continue this conversation. And when we come out of the conversation, we'll also open up the phone lines, 0719-012-600, so that anybody who's got a question or comment to the Peter Kema, he's Executive Director of the Independent Medical Legal Unit, you can shoot your questions and comments. We are discussing police brutality, the long and windy journey of police reforms that seems to be going round in circles before it even takes off. What do you think about that? Police reforms, police brutality, especially now during these COVID-19 times. You're seeing 18 people shot dead, 33 tortured. These according to data collected by the IMLU between the 16th of March and the 31st of May. These are huge, high numbers. Good morning, 27 minutes to 9.
All right, traffic in the CBD this morning is crazy. It is absolutely a menace today. Thika Road heading to Muthaiga this morning, guys. I don't know what to tell you about it. It isn't moving. It is quite the bumper-to-bumper situation. Trying to get out of it is going to take a little bit longer than expected. Here we are saying that there's still cessation of movement, but it's jam. And unfortunately, both the highway and the service lanes are all completely occupied. It's a suicide mission on the service lane between Survey and Pangani this morning. It's not happening. Getting to the Pangani underpass and then to the Globe Cinema roundabout and into the CBD. We don't know what's going on today, but bumper to bumper, moving at a snail's pace. If you're in that area, no accidents or incidents. It's just moving extremely slowly. Mombasa Road is moving a little bit quicker. Other parts of the city, you'll be fine. And the southern and eastern bypass is causing no problems whatsoever today. We'll keep an eye on that for you. Let us know what you see as well. Spice FMKE on Twitter. That's what traffic looks like right now.
We are discussing police brutality, especially it's not anything. What we are saying now is what we've been saying over the years. The Independent Medical Legal Unit, whose executive director we are speaking with this morning, is telling us between 2009 and 2013, they conducted a survey just by visiting the mortuaries and seeing the number of deaths of people who have died as a result of being shot by a bullet. 1,873 people death by bullet between 2009 and 2013. And of those, only 13% had been killed by criminals. The rest, police officers. 92% of those died at the scene of the shooting, which means that it was a shoot to kill. The intention of the person who was pulling the trigger was to end life. Just looking at the kind of statistics as well, since 2013, IMLU says that they have recorded an average of 140 cases of people killed by cops on average, year on year. You know, the numbers keep changing. But just in this COVID-19 period, since the 16th of March, when restrictions were put in place, 18 people have died. 18 people have been shot dead, have been killed. 33 people have been tortured. Various forms of torture. This is, it basically just pours cold water. It vomits on the shoes of those who wrote the Constitution and said, this is what we're going to do. And one way of ensuring that we have a just society is to reform our institutions. Let's reform the police service. We have had very many structural adjustments to the police service. And as Peter Kiama, who is executive director of IMLU, is saying, we forgot the software. Or maybe the software is just the people who should be working on the software are not willing to work on the software. Yeah. Is that so, Peter?
If I go back to the command structure, the command and control structure of the National Police Service, that was established in 2018, September 2018, and launched by the president. What that command structure was trying to do was to ensure that responsibility is clarified. Responsibility for the powers given and the responsibilities for the resources given.
Yes.
And therefore, instead of having three commanders around a police station, you have a DCI commander, you have a Kenya General Duty commander, you have an AP commander.
Yep.
We now have only one under the jurisdiction of every police station. That is the ward commander who is formerly called the OCS.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you want to prevent killings and prevent violations, the person in charge is now very well known. There's no ambiguity anymore. And therefore, this is the person who assigns duties every morning and every evening. Okay? So, and they know which officer is assigned to which responsibility and which particular section of the jurisdiction every day and every hour. Now, what we are seeing is a failure of the command structure. And the command structure goes all the way to the office of the Inspector General. Of course, it stops first at the Deputy Inspector General, who reports to the Inspector General. But the operational command is the Deputy Inspector General. And therefore, what we are seeing, therefore, is a failure of the command structure. And that's where we need to place the responsibility. In that, for example, if it is take for example, Huruma Police Station, around which some in Nairobi, around which, or even Kondele police station in Kisumu, for example, or whichever other station, if an officer is on patrol and they kill somebody on the patrol, the ward commander should take immediate action. Number one, to disarm the officer and to institute investigations, including reporting, giving all details of the incident to IPOA. For independent investigations, including going to see the family of the victim.
But Peter,
explaining the action they are taking.
Is this a failure of the structure, or is the structure working the way it's designed to work?
Well, that's an interesting question to it. I'm saying it's a failure because I'm basing my argument around the constitution and legal provisions
the
and
ideals.
The expectations of Kenya. In that the National Police Service has been established to provide security and safety for the people. Okay? And so if you base it on that, therefore, the system has failed.
Right. So if we're saying, sorry, Peter, we're saying that if we're looking at a failure of the command structure at the seat of the deputy, which is what you've spoken about just now. So now that means failure in oversight, failure in checks and balances, failure across board. So that means that there are certain things that are going to do. So let's say, because I mean, a lot of the things that you've spoken about now are ideal situations, that there's a constitution that the people are supposed to follow. There's a constitution that custodians of the law, such as the police, are supposed to follow and abide by, or at least make sure that the citizens are operating within those tenets, right? That is not happening. So are we saying that ideally, if this position of deputy at the police, the deputy at the police service is able to put all these checks and balances, then what we've described as systemic issues then will suddenly change? Now, let me say that I partially agree with you that before the promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and the enactment of the National Police Service Act 2011, those we would say were ideals. But finally now they've been captured in the normative legal framework of the country. Through consensus, we went to a referendum, and Kenyans clearly said we want a national police service, not a national police force. So I don't think it's idealistic anymore. What has happened is the resistance of the institution to change, and other institutions that are supposed to ensure that the institution of the National Police Service changes have also failed, including the Independent Policing Oversight Authority in this respect. And I want to communicate this very clearly. In that I do feel that the IPOA should enhance their oversight over the commanders, at every level, so that command responsibility becomes now the focus, even as we pursue individual criminal responsibility. Yes, because we need to pursue those two. But for a long time, even in the first term of IPOA board, we saw them saying, well, let's not pursue too much of command responsibility. Let's pursue individual cases and explore how that goes. I think it's the high time we begin to hold the commanders to account, in that if police officers under a particular police station go out there and kill without any reason to kill, then even the OCS should step down. Okay.
Yes, because there's a failure.
So that forces accountability at some level.
Exactly. So we shouldn't be going to the Inspector General when we know under whose jurisdiction the police killed. We should hold the commander to account.
I think there's a general... It occurs to me that there may be a general belief that when these cases happen within the boundaries of the police, that it's not a crime, right? Taking of a life, however you want to look at it, in this case is a crime. And if we look at the way in which other crimes are dealt with in this country, that when somebody then is taken or when somebody or an individual or group is prosecuted, it then serves as a deterrent to others who may want to then do the same thing, or who may be caught within that snare. Do you think this would work in this case, whereby police randomly doing their patrols during curfew hours, for example, shoot somebody, or would be tempted to shoot somebody, realize what may have happened to their colleagues previously, would stop them from taking that action? Do you think this is going to work for something that, again, we've deemed a systemic issue?
No. Remember, there's also a link to politics, because the police, when we talk about policing services, they are in the realm of governance, good governance. Now, we do know that our political system has problems, and for a long time, the police institution. I'm having a difficulty calling it a service or a force, because I think there's a bit of ambiguity now going by the conduct we are seeing. The police institution has been used for a long time to control, suppress the population. Now, the new legal infrastructure was meant to change that, to provide the basis to change that. So the police, at the back of their mind, always know that they owe some loyalty to the political system, and that when push comes to shove, they can be protected. Now, especially within the executive. But we have parliament, which has also totally failed in holding the police to account. We have made many submissions to parliament, but we have not seen parliament do enough, including demanding, demanding that those who have command responsibility take responsibility. This what we are seeing is, with regard to your question now, for me to specifically speak to that, what we are seeing across the country is reform-minded officers at the middle ranks, who are well-educated, well-trained, their attitudes are for reform, they are reform-minded, but there's a bit of a difficulty in terms of they keep on asking themselves, how far should I go?
Without burning my fingers, yes.
Commanders at middle ranks look over their shoulder every time they want to, bring reform, is causing a lot of difficulty within the National Police Service. So those doubts need to be removed. And I think the responsibility to remove those doubts in terms of how far can I go as a middle-level officer, as an officer commanding a police station, or as an officer commanding a sub-county, how far can I go? Those doubts can only be removed by the Inspector General.
I get a sense, though, Peter, that I think we are also blaming, like you've just said, there are officers in middle ranks who want to see the reform. There are officers in junior level who are operating with impunity. Officers at senior level may also be wanting to institute reforms, but they may be feeling that their hands are tied because the system itself, and the system is now going beyond the service into the national government system. The government system itself is not willing to see police reforms. The government would like to still continue having a police service or a police force that it can use to control the people, to subdue the people. Because, and the reason I'm saying that is, if indeed there was willingness and determination to reform the police service, and we've got all the legal instruments backing these reforms, I don't see the reason why we don't have those reforms. From the point of having an Inspector General of Police picked, to a point of even removing an Inspector General of Police because the government is feeling that this Inspector General of Police is not being effective, and bringing in a new Inspector General of Police, serving an entire term, having a third Inspector General of Police, but we're still talking the same story. You've said the president himself came up with a new structure in 2018 and said, this is the structure that we'd like to see the police service operating in. But I go back to saying the government system does not want to see police reforms.
Now, remember, of course, there are political interests to this, and the policy document that was issued by the president in September 2018, was meant to address that, and we saw serious commitment at that particular point. But I think the optimism stopped there when we look at how far the reforms have been implemented. Remember, in September 2018, the president issued an order
Yep.
to the Ministry of Interior and Treasury to implement Section 116, I think 116 of the National Police Service Act that provides the Inspector General with the independence of budget. The Inspector General is not in charge of the National Police Service budget.
Yeah.
So there are those interests in there within the executive and within Parliament that want to control the police even through budget, just like they've done with the judiciary.
Yep.
And therefore, for us to provide the Inspector General with more leverage as well, we have to give, make the Inspector General the accounting officer for the National Police Service budget, just like we've done with the Director General of the Commissioner General of the Prison Service. The prison service is smaller than the National Police Service, yet the budget is managed a bit differently. So we do expect that those within the executive provide stop holding the National Police Service on a short leash with regard to the budget.
With budgeting issues.
Because it's a critical issue. If you look at the National Police budget, which we are now analyzing, and we will be interacting with the media maybe later in the year, if you look at the amount of money that goes to the police station, you empathize with some of the officers who manage police stations. So there's a resource issue as well with regard to the service, the quality of services provided at the police station.
So who's been having the control of the budget?
The National Police Service budget is managed from the Ministry of Interior.
There you go.
And that has been a very contentious issue. It is the elephant in the room. We need to address it. And I think even the media needs to interrogate that particular issue, because there's a clear provision within the National Police Service Act on how this should be managed.
So they don't have that independence, because if you don't have the independence to think, to determine how you're going to spend your money, you basically are not independent.
No, you are not. And also remember that Parliament failed us in 2014 and subsequent years when Parliament agreed with the executive to amend the National Police Service Act to remove some of the independence, some of the provisions that provided the Inspector General with more independence, including the recruitment of the Inspector General competitively. Now, the excuse at that point by the executive was that the president needs to have control over the Inspector General.
It's got to be the commander-in-chief.
Exactly. Now, remember, it is the armed forces, commander-in-chief of the armed forces.
Yes.
And the police are not armed forces. The police are civilians who have been armed to provide security and safety.
Yeah.
So there's an issue with regard to the budgeting. So Parliament has failed us. We had to go to court to mitigate some of the serious negative consequences of those amendments. And Parliament needs to revisit that clearly and maybe make more amendments to provide the independence required of the National Police Service. Remember that since 2011, we've had, I think, now 3 persons in charge of the National Police Service. There are 2 Inspector Generals. And in both instances, the first one who was removed was not removed because they did not, because they did so well for the people that they annoyed the executive.
Yeah.
They actually failed in their duties and had to go.
They had to.
So it's not that any of them could say, I'm doing so well for the people that have annoyed the powers to be. Our dream is to see an Inspector General and other commanders at different levels who work so well for the people, who improve the security so much that they annoy the executive. We want to see that, because that's the narrative that is out there. That, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that because I'm going to annoy the powers to be.
Yeah, you don't want to ruffle the feathers.
You don't want to ruffle feathers.
Ruffle feathers.
Yeah,
sure, but what's that going to take? I mean, look, Peter, it sounds nice that we can say it this, because wouldn't it be a fantastic thing that you would be able to see that the people of the country so well protected by a police service that it is essentially irritating somebody else? That would be great. What needs to happen for that to be? Because now, if you want to look at the situation, citizens are scared. Nobody wants to go near the police. If you just from these numbers that we're hearing, it's a disturbing thing right? Yeah. And unfortunately, it's not just in COVID times. It is beyond that. People's first reaction or people's first emotion towards the police is fear. So what needs to happen? What are the steps that we need to be able to tick off to get to that point whereby we're living in this place where the police are actually your friend?
We need to own the National Police Service as citizens. We need to grab it away from the powers that be. The powers that be in the political system, the executive, as well as within the National Police Service. Because there are those also who have subjected the National Police Service to capture because of old habits and old attitudes and old traditions. We need to retake our National Police Service.
Our attempts to do that in 2010 have fallen flat. So what else can we do? I mean, we attempted to do that by saying that the police service shall be an independent service that is serving the people. Those attempts have failed. So what else can we do?
We can do several things, and I'm not providing a prescription here, but we can do several things in my own understanding. Number one is that there are 4 pillars that we must address this issue from. Number one pillar is we must mind the professional management of our National Police Service. The professionalism of the National Police Service is critical. We must hold to account those who have been put in charge of the National Police Service so that our officers' welfare is taken care of. Our officers' capacity to provide quality service are taken care of. Whether it is their remuneration, whether it is the HR management practices internally, that has to be taken care of. Number 2, we must demand of the Inspector General and his commanders that the police at every police station, at every police unit must involve the people. Public participation is now a critical pillar. And we have seen success stories, which we can share in another forum, where OCSs or ward commanders have embraced community policing, and it's working beautifully. In a good number of those stations where community policing committees are active, we haven't seen any incident or violation. The police have worked very well with the people. The police have not been compelled to use force. They have actually discussed these issues with the business community, with the border people, with the hotel people, and people have complied without any shootings or any batons. Number 3, citizens must continue with this new momentum of accountability. Citizen journalism, citizen vigilance is critical. So that because the National Police vetting done by the National Police Service earlier totally failed, it is now upon us to weed out those numbers.
So we do our own vetting now.
Yes, citizen vetting, because by highlighting these cases and providing evidence, we'll be able to remove those ones who are not, who are not ready to change, and therefore protect the champions. So accountability will cut both ways: weeding out through citizen vigilance those who are not complying, and therefore enhancing the confidence of those who are pro-change to be able to, because they need support from citizenry. And for me, number 4 is citizens to demand quality service. We cannot look the other way. We cannot say, the police cell in my area is so bad because only criminals go there. There's no criminal who goes to a police cell. It is only suspects who go to a police cell with all their rights. So we must demand that the police cell is humane, can treat us humanely,
and treat us humanely.
Sorry?
And I'm agreeing, and treat us humanely as well.
Precisely. I mean, we should demand in our own police stations that when women go there and they have their own biological needs, they must be provided with those needs, so that they're not dehumanized, they're not humiliated, for example. Just to give one example.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of work to do, and definitely this is a conversation that needs to continue. But for now, we have to say thank you very much, Peter Kiyama. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning as the director of the IMLU. We are very grateful for that, and we hope that we can keep the conversation going and start to tick off those boxes in terms of what needs to be done to have a service as opposed to a force.
'You're most welcome. Thank you
so much.
Have a good day, Peter.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Well, the conversation continues on our social media platforms as well. Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. As we get to the top of the hour, let me remind you of today's proverb. It's a Malian proverb. If you know you don't know, you will know. If you know you don't know, you will know. If you don't know that you don't know, you will not know. If you know that you don't know, you will know. If you don't know that you don't know, you will not know. You're stuck. That's where you are. This is a situation of Miss Kenya's biggest conversation. Stick around for the next hour. We're going to be discussing the issues of the African Development Bank. Good morning. It's now 9 a.m.
Mombasa road traffic is now heavy this morning, heading out towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. It's going to take a minute there. Quite packed. The dual carriage from all the way from the Machakos Junction to the Kitengela interchange, and then from there around the SGR all the way down to General Motors and a little bit after that. This is what we see on Mombasa Road, taking a cue from Thika Road this morning. It is an absolute mess. You close your eyes to what's going on Thika Road today, and it's really, really not fun, unfortunately. All right, so those two areas we have some issue with getting into the CBD. Everybody's out and about, unfortunately. So we're going to keep our eyes on both of those areas today and see what happens after that. But if you're going in that direction, be prepared. You're going to be there for a while. Let us know anything else that you do see. Spice FMKE on Twitter. Let us know how we can help keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic,
it's also
political
Kenya's
observer.
biggest conversation. In the room this morning is Nduoko and Eric Latif. We have been talking about police reforms and the journey towards police reforms, the journey that seems not to be moving anywhere. Peter Kema of IMLU has just told us, you know what, sometimes maybe now it's a time for citizens to retake controls of their journey. Are citizens willing? Are citizens well motivated to retake that control of the journey? Probably. We are seeing the beginnings of that when people get out, demonstrate over the brutality of killing an elderly homeless man in Mathare. It's one of the steps to take towards that. So now, tell us about what's happening in African geopolitics.
It seems that there's never a dull day, right? There's always drama. There's always things going on. The African Development Bank, as we know it, is that to develop around the continent. And let's just look at what it is and what it's supposed to be doing. It's to spur sustainable economic development and social progress in its member countries, and it's then contributing to poverty reduction, for example, within its member countries. And their goals, their sustainable development goals for the bank, and it's all around ending hunger, ending poverty, ensuring healthy life, promoting well-being, ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education, gender equality. I mean, it goes there's quite a number of things to knock off that what the bank does. And it has its member countries. All right. So everybody seems to be a part of this. It's the brainchild of a number of countries. It's got a strategy that it's carrying up until 2022. And that's the current strategy within which it's working on right now. And the presidency of the bank skips from country to country. Right now, the presidency of your bank is with Nigeria in the name of Dr. Akin Adesina. And he's probably going to go into his second term, which he's up for election in August of this year, and has served at the bank for the last 5 years and is probably going to enter into the next 5-year term. Now, right now, his term has come to an end. He's still serving as the law.
Transition.
So he's in a transitionary period until the election for August comes. Now, his term has been checkered with good things. He's talked about the inward-looking solutions for African countries. He's talked about agribusiness. He's talked about agriculture as the savior. He's talked about not swapping raw materials in Africa for finished products that come from the Western Hemisphere. He's saying use our own natural products for our development as African countries, and he's really been insisting on that. And he's talked about 2030 as having been the time whereby Africa now will tip over in terms of that cusp, whereby you will see that African countries then will be able to use their own raw materials to produce for themselves, as opposed to others coming in and continually taking the raw materials and leaving African countries with nothing. Now, of course, there's some people who do not like this, because how they prosper or how they survive is as a result of pushing a lot of their finished products, which they use African raw materials to develop, back to African countries then to buy. You see how that happens? Now, somebody doesn't like this. And there are many allegations that have come. But suddenly, there are allegations of corruption then at the helm of the African Development Bank. And unfortunately, Dr. Adesina has been at the receiving end of all of this. And then,
so allegations that have come from staff, whistleblowers who are saying that they are staff of the African Development Bank,
who seem to have some kind of alignment to the member country that has asked for this probe to take place.
Okay, before pull in the Nigerian line of the alignment or our Nigerian, our man is being fought.
No.
There are people, members of staff of the African Development Bank, who have come out and they're calling themselves the whistleblowers, and they've raised allegations against Dr. Adesina, and they're saying this is how the man has been running the organization in the last couple of years. The overall accusation here is that he's been favoring Nigeria and Nigerians. Okay?
Of course.
And then an investigation was called.
And it was cleared by the bank.
And the committee that is responsible for this, the ethics committee of the board of AFDB, took up the 3 allegations. They cleared him of all 3 and said, these are unfounded. Each of these counts is unfounded. We have not found anything to support what the allegations are, or even to support taking any matter of administrative action against the president of the bank. This is presented to the board. I beg your pardon. And in the board sits the member countries as well. So America, and this is now at the level of the Treasury CS, is it? Of America, writes back and says, you know what? We don't like the way the Ethics Committee conducted its investigation. We'd like an independent investigation to look into this. So we'd like an independent investigation to look into these allegations. And that way, then we steer clear of seeing whether the board that was investigating this, which is led by the Japanese member of the board, was acting impartially or partially. So let's have a completely independent, and this is where now the bone of contention is. African leaders, Pan-Africanists have come out to say, come on, America, if the board has already said, you cannot now start questioning the board itself.
As who?
Because a committee of the board has already investigated the man. The committee of the board has cleared the man. The board itself has said, we agree with what the findings of the ethics committee of the board, and we therefore clear the gentleman. And now America, which is sits on the board and is one of the shareholders of the AFDB, cannot be coming to raise issues again, and they're getting support from some quarters, from some European quarters. Some other quarters are also saying, well, yeah. What America is saying, let's have an independent investigation.
I don't think it's coincidental.
If the man is clean, he's clean.
I don't think it's coincidental that the people who are supporting this supposed independent investigation are also people that, if you look at it on a wider picture, stand to lose when it comes to the wider aspects of Africa in inclusive looking strategies for the future would also lose. And I don't think that it's coincidental that has happened as well. And if you look across the board, if you look at the majority stakeholdership of the African Development Bank, everybody is kind of like on the same side here, where they're talking about the fact that, look, this goes beyond just calls for looking into his conduct while he was the president. It goes beyond that. And I think it's about time the scales really fell off our eyes, and to be able to look beyond just somebody saying that there are issues of corruption. Look at the man's track record when he was even the Minister for Agriculture and Natural Environment in Nigeria. Look at his track record. Look at what he was able to do. Look at some of the things that he's been able to put in place Is it now just because now he's sitting at this position, he's going to enter into some petty politics and some petty corruption? I don't think so. And I think we need to be looking at some of these issues, especially when it comes to how we deal with issues as African nations. And somebody continually pointing the finger at us, we need to be able to look at that through unscaled eyes and say, there could be something else. There could be something deeper than this issue that we're looking at. Because at the end of the day, we have to be very cognizant of the fact that there are external powers that do not want African countries to survive.
And here is the sense. The sense here is that because the country that's raising issues is not one of the African countries.
6.6% holdership even.
Yes, it's a 6.6. No other country. Only one other country has more shareholding than this 6.6. Okay,
which is Nigeria. Yes.
Yeah, which is Nigeria. The rest of the countries, all of you guys who are making noise, you own less than this. You individually hold less than this. Okay, so they are legitimately here. They are not just making noise from the periphery. They are a shareholder of the bank, and it doesn't matter whether they are from within Africa or from without Africa. They are legitimately in this position. The sense here is that Africa is feeling like what America is trying to do is trying to dictate its ways. And that's now where we bring in the Pan-Africanism into it. That the rest of Africa is feeling, wait a minute.
Why?
Why are you talking to us like that? Who the hell do you think you are? Do you know me? Do I know you? Go ahead like that. And that's even what we have seen, the leadership of African leaders, the former presidents, Olusegun Obasanjo, the former president of Nigeria, in fact, brought around former presidents of Africa and said, let's sign a joint statement condemning this kind of push from America and the other countries and supporting Dr. Adesina and saying this man should remain in office. If there's nobody else who's challenging him for re-election, for a new term,
then what's the problem?
Let the man take the seat. I think we need to just interrogate this. And we've seen a lot of people who have gone around, coming up with strong support for the president of the AFDB. One of them is Ayo Bankole. Ayo Bankole is... who is he again?
Well, okay, so
introduce him.
So if we look at the work that Ayo does, Ayo Bankole, of course, is definitely I want to call him a social commentator, but he does a lot more work as the a strategy expert and the convener of the Lagos SME Bootcamp series, and works out of Lagos, Nigeria. But at the same time, also really does understand some of the intrigues going on at the AFDB, and also the intrigues in terms of African autonomy when it comes to solutions for Africans' problems. And so we'll be talking to him this morning out of Lagos. Ayo, good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Ayo. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you for having me.
Right, so Ayo, if we're going to just step into this one, legs in first, what exactly is going on?
Okay, so what's going on is that you have international politics at play here, sadly to the detriment of Africa. And so it's a case of interest, right? You have a multilateral organization that the leadership under Akinwumi Adesina has decided to take an inward-focused approach that, unfortunately, appears to have not been the way that the U.S. and its interests wanted to play. And if you notice, you will know that, the blueprints are all over the place. First, China relations, I think the additional continuous policies, pro-African policies, which sort of make reduces U.S.'s influence and investment, trade interest in Africa, and a couple of other things, right? And again, the fact that these allegations are suddenly coming up prior to elections, just right before elections, is another signal. And then the fact that it came up after an initial attempt to smear the organization. If you recall sometime earlier, the World Bank had raised an alarm that AFDB's loan patterns were increasing the loan exposure of African countries. And I think in addition of, blatantly debunked that with facts and figures and showed how it is the percentage of AFDB's loans versus World Bank loans, the processes that AFDB applies to issue out those loans, and that died in natural death. And then this suddenly came up. So you can see that there are all sorts of patterns, all over the place. And people like us decided to say, look, who are admirers of Akin Additional decided to say, look, let's put facts right. Some of these things are just totally unfortunate.
But if you look at the what now is coming out, let's just call them conspiracy theories here, because for lack of a better word, there are conspiracy theories that we're trying to explain or to understand why exactly the Western powers would try to push Adesina out of AFDB. And one of them, like you're saying, is that dependence on the internal dependence on our own markets to develop our own agricultural markets, to develop Africa's own economies and robust economies. That's one of the allegations. But what is it that points us towards that direction? What is it that makes us think that this is exactly why the West is trying to get somebody who is more acceptable to them?
Okay, let me provide some background, right? Yeah. I think that, and this is very important for a lot of Africans, right? And this is why I'm passionate about this, because this is why the West would easily be able to do these kind of things, because we know that a lot of Africans, even the ones who are educated, do not really understand how these things work. So first and foremost, no country would invest or put money in Africa for Africa's interest, right? It's always every country's interest first and foremost, right? Yep. So having said that, America's interest in AFDB is primarily to promote America's trade interest in Africa, to use AFDB as a channel for promoting America's trade interest. And this is not hearsay, right? If you listen to the one of the board member who represents America on the board of AFDB when he was being screened by the U.S. Congress, he made it clear that he was going to lead the U.S. effort. He was going to lead the effort to leverage U.S. contribution to AFDB in order to ensure that their finance efforts are used to the best benefit for Africa, and that they are consistent with U.S. foreign policy interests there. And that U.S. taxpayers' money get a good return for their money. So since he has joined, you would notice that. So he joined in 2019, and for the past 5 years, I think additional has been. There has been this consistent conflict between China and American investment in Africa. So the U.S. has tried to, on several occasions, and these things are publicly available, has tried to water down China's influence or increase their own influence using the AFDB, right? And I think additional leadership has consistently said that, look, Africa's infrastructure needs annually is over $150 billion. So it shouldn't be Africa's business or headache who is providing infrastructure funds. Africa's business should be what are the terms that these funds are providing. Right. So America's business, America shouldn't be worrying about China coming into Africa. America should be worried about its own absence in Africa, right? So if you don't want China coming, then compete with China to the benefit of Africa, right? But of course, that isn't, you know how international politics is. These guys do not want to provide, or they are maybe unable to provide as much or as fast or as flexible funding as China can. So they would rather use the institutions to water down that influence. So that's on one side, right? Then you now have, and I'll give you another history, right? If you have followed, I think, additional, history, even when he was, he has been at the forefront of agricultural transformation and production-based economy in Africa, right?
Right.
And you can't do that without stepping on United States and other Western countries' investment portfolio.
Of course.
Because it is people. If you have read Why Nations Fail, right? The primary reason, the difference between poor economies and rich economies is their production base, right? If you do not produce, you will never become economically liberated.
Right.
So, for example, when he was Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria, everybody, the concept of cassava bread became very popular. And America, Nigeria, had a $4.2 billion import bill, and the largest import of flour and wheat then materials were coming from the United States. So he mandated that, look, for every bread that we produce, at least 10% of it should come from cassava, indigenous cassava, right? So all of these policies, and he continued propagating, this inward focus, production defense based anti-Western import type of policy. And the West kept telling him the United States had, issues with this, and some of these records are all over the place where they have made statements that, pointed to the fact that they were uncomfortable and that AFDB was restricting or serving as an obstacle to African U.S. investments and trade relations in Africa. So they became uncomfortable when Akinwumi Adesina became the unopposed candidate for re-election. And you followed President Donald Trump's policies, you will know how very passionate he is about anti-China policies and China's influence in the world. Under Obama, it was Russia, but under this president, it is China. So
it's China.
Very keen on it is China. So he's very keen on not having someone at the helm of affairs in Africa that is, not going to toe the line of the United States against China, right? So that is why this came up as the election came up, because other candidates, some other candidate tried. I can't remember his name now, but he didn't get the endorsement of the president, and the requirement to contest, you have to get the endorsement of the president. Of
your home country.
Yes, all presidents, all African presidents endorsed the gentleman because he did exceptionally well. And then we're coming up with this mudslinging, against him. So that's the background to it. It is strictly political. And if you look at all the allegations, I don't want to jump the gun, you see there. You will see that this is quite political. Even the structure or the laws and governance structure of the AFDB and how you look at these allegations have all been followed.
Yeah.
So the crises are all over the world and clearly political.
It's fairly political. So now are we looking at, even as this unfolds and we say, look, the board or the committee that was set up by the board to look into these allegations, they cleared Dr. Adesina of all of this, right? He was cleared. Now, this independent investigation that has been called up by the United States, are we looking at really saying that they want to curtail the influence of China in Africa, or do they want to, if we want to look and speculate a little bit more, or are they trying to stop African countries then from using their raw materials to their benefit? Is that which ones are we looking at here?
No. It is both of them. Don't forget that their interest and China's influence in Africa is an interest. It is against America's interest, right? That's one side. So they are not mutually exclusive, right? So that's on one side. Then Africa's internal policy and AFDB loans. There are different mechanisms that powerful countries use to influence policy. For example, America is the second largest shareholder in AFDB. So naturally, America expects that AFDB's loans should be should have certain influencing decisions. So, for example, if I'm going to give you a loan, there should be certain underlying conditions that should protect America's interest, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And yes, exactly those kind of things. But AFDB, as it is currently set up, is not doing that. AFDB is trying to be as independent as possible and separating itself from the China-America dichotomy, and America is not comfortable with that. So both of them are independent. And in terms of other elements, which is going all over, and if you dig into, I think, additional previous videos, interviews, statements, you would see its continuous efforts at agricultural revolution in Africa, technology in Africa, and all of that. And the more these things are increasing, the less the influence of U.S. investors. And U.S. investors are also have powerful lobbies. They lobby the United States government.
Very
they
good.
lobby the Secretary of Treasury, and all of that. So they are all working together, to be honest.
Okay, so now as we look at this and as this continues, I mean, as asking the last questions on this now, what do we see is probably going to happen? I mean, it seems that he will remain as president, but do we see more of this poking that's going to take place?
Okay, before I came online, I heard that you said that his tenure has ended. His tenure ends in August, right? It was elections that were supposed to have held.
Okay.
But it's the election that was suspended till August. Now, you see, technically following governance law, and again, another point that people make, people think that, it's corrupt, Africa is just trying to cover him up and all of that. You see, that's not the case. The case here is, if somebody has done wrong, you don't correct a wrongdoing with another wrong. Except you have something to hide, or except there is more to it than what the eye can see. I don't know if you're following me. So let me talk you through the journey of what they have done. They came up with 16 allegations. Very ridiculous, but I will even put the ridiculous side of it aside. 16 ridiculous allegations, and the board of governors or the board took their time to follow the regulations and extant laws governing the AFDB. And the board ethics committee, which is responsible for such allegations, addressed this. Please note that the chairman of the board of the ethics board is the representative of Japan. So it is not a solely African board, committee. Because that's another misconception that people have. Now, this committee rigorously looked at all 16 allegations, attempted to interview the whistleblowers. Now, you cannot be a whistleblower if you do not have an evidence of wrongdoing against somebody. What are you whistleblowing? I can't just stand up and say, hey, guys at the situation room, I want to whistleblow on you that your motive for your program is XYZ. Except I have concrete evidence. And I'm not whistleblowing, I'm just making spurious allegations, right? So the committee called the whistleblowers, on several occasions to come forward, bring evidence, or make documented. They didn't show up. They said there was no evidence. They said they are minimum coming forward with. Then the committee said, look, if you don't have any evidence against all of these things, and we have done our own independent investigation, we've looked at the governance code of conduct for recruitment, we've looked at the processes that these individuals were recruited, we've looked at the constitution of AFDB staff and management and board. We've seen that a lot of these things, and if you look at the released summarized version of their report, they said that they said all of the allegations should be dismissed. And in the AFDB's governance code laws, there is nowhere that has provisions for an external party to investigate its president. So once the ethics committee submits their report, the board of governors approved this report and backed the report.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the United States said, no, let's go and adopt let's go and follow another mechanism
outside of the lay down structures.
So, and that's where everybody, and they didn't stop there. All of a sudden, the statement that they issued, they released to all the press, especially the international media, West American media especially. They were all sort of things against that international, and they started releasing these statements that were not made, that were totally contradictory to what the Board of Governors issued.
Yeah.
They started saying that the Board of Governors are pressuring National to step down. National was found XYZ. So much so that the Board of Governors had to release a statement on May 26th to debunk all these things and say that, National is not stepping down and is having, found it guilty. And you understand? So there are lots of this. So that's what we are saying. That look, follow the laws, follow the governance ethics code of the association.
Follow all the laid down regulations and procedures of the bank, because they are there. Yeah, I think this is gonna unfold as one of those cases where we are seeing Africa and African states trying to stand by their own, trying to stand with their own. We are also seeing presidents across the country releasing statements and saying, I stand by Akina Desina. We saw the president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, last night released a statement saying the same. I stand with the president of the AFDB presently, and I stand with the work that he's been doing. I think we are going to see some interesting time to come between now and that August when the election takes place. And let's continue observing. Ayo Bankole, thank you very much for speaking to us from Lagos, Nigeria.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all your insights. Have a good day.
You too.
The conversation continues, and we'd like you now to join this conversation, 0719-012-600. This is Sama saying this is one of those instances where African leaders and African states, we need to stand for Pan-Africanism and stand for their own and with their own. And others are saying, well, if there are allegations, let's investigate those allegations. But what exactly is happening? Is it a push for their own personal interests? Those Western countries that are pushing for Akina Desina to basically leave the African Development Bank? Do they want to install their own stooge to continue to further their own agenda within the bank, within Africa and the lending across the continent? This kind of geopolitics that we're discussing this morning at 9:30. Let's take a look at the weather and traffic. Good morning. This is A Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, join the conversation. Spice FM KE on Facebook, on Twitter, and also by calling in 0719-012-600.
Still partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 18 degrees. Chance of rain, they say, is quite high, highs of 23. Taking a look then into Nyeri at 14 degrees, rain coming in later, highs of 22. And in Nakuru, it'll be a wet afternoon as well with highs of 24. Eldoret at 12 degrees takes us to thunderstorms in the afternoon with highs of 22. And in Kisumu, we'll see a low of 19 today and partly cloudy conditions, but it'll be wet in this part of the country. And Kakamega follows suit with thunderstorms later with highs of 26. Malindi at 24 degrees currently will experience thunderstorms in the afternoon with highs of 29. It was raining earlier in Mombasa and it still is, with light rain showers likely to continue throughout the day with highs of 29 and lows of 24. Kampala at 19 degrees right now will be thunderstormy in the afternoon with highs of 26 and lows of 19. Dar es Salaam, mostly sunny conditions at 23. It'll warm up to 31 and lows of 22. Let's see what it looks like in Johannesburg currently at 11 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 7 with sunny conditions all through. All right. And in Lagos this morning at 25 degrees, the fog is quite low in most parts of the city. Highs of 32 and lows of 24. All right. Let's look roundabout in London. And partly cloudy conditions this morning at 17 degrees and showers promised for the afternoon with highs of 19 and lows of 12. New York looks sunny for now, when the sun will actually eventually come up. We're getting very close to that. But then cloudy conditions and into rain in the summer, highs of 29 and lows of 17. And we'll wrap things up in Paris this morning, where it's sunny conditions at 19 degrees, clear skies all through with highs of 27 and lows of 13. All right, seems that the roundabouts of Nyayo Stadium and City Stadium are a nightmare this morning. Trying to get towards the CBD is going to take you a little bit of time. And now we're looking at Thika Road and also Mombasa Road that have caused some problems for us today. Traffic is of epic proportions on those major highways as we see. Interestingly enough, on other smaller roads, it's not much of an issue. And other highways too, from Gong Road to Langata Road and then also coming off of Waiyaki Way, it's not too bad. We took a quick peek into Mombasa and Kisumu, and it seems that traffic is flowing very smoothly in those two towns and cities. It is not causing too much problems for us. All right, it's likely to die down now when we come back into the city, and we'll be able to get through in a short while, and then it will pick up later on in the afternoon. So that's what traffic looked like this morning. You can send your views through, you can send what you see through so that we can keep it moving.
This is a situation, the biggest conversation. We are talking about Pan-Africanism this hour, just like we did yesterday. So the AFDB, the president of the African Development Bank, is under pressure. And the pressure is actually now on the board of the African Development Bank from one of the shareholders of the bank, and this is the United States, which is getting support from some Western countries. The US is demanding that an independent investigation be conducted on the AFDB president, the Nigerian man, Akin Adesina. But African countries are now rallying behind Akin Adesina, and we are seeing the leaders coming up. Yesterday, Adesina met with the president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, and Buhari said Nigeria stands solidly behind Adesina in his re-election bid as president of the AFDB. We will work with all leaders and stakeholders in AFDB to ensure that he is re-elected on the strength of his achievements during this first term. So already we are seeing that. And then you also saw the president of the Sierra Leone, President, what's his name? President Maada Bio of Sierra Leone. He says, "Be assured, Adesina, of my and my country's staunch confidence and unflinching support for your bold and progressive leadership of the African Development Bank." Other leaders who've done this include the former presidents of several African countries, led by the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, who released a statement saying, what we are seeing now, this kind of push and clamor to have fresh investigations by America, is an attempt to take control of the bank, is an attempt to control how we as Africans are operating in our own independence. And we do not support this kind of move.
I think it's also an unconscious attempt to undermine the work that has been done. And I mean, look at how the bank has grown in leaps and bounds in the last 5 years under his watch, under things that he has insisted needed to have been done. If we look at deposits, if we look at contributions by countries, if we look at what they've been able to do as a result of, either loans that they sent out to particular countries and what they've been able to get back. I mean, just look at the growth in terms of dollar growth from $93 billion to $208 billion in the last 5 years. And to be able to say that where it was riddled with, lack of collections, where it was riddled with lack of proper policies coming out for what they were suggesting countries should do, that has completely changed. And I can't get away from the fact that Adesina, in the work that he has done, has really insisted on African countries really making sure that they use their raw materials really to their benefit. Because this is the thing that has really plagued African countries when it comes to economic development. To take and give your raw material away and then buy back a finished product from somebody who's benefiting from that. You give it away at a very low price. You buy back the finished product for a price that you almost cannot afford.
Yep.
And he's really been trying to get African countries to stay away from that. Don't you think that was bound to piss somebody off?
Of course. He's been pushing for that. He's been saying the price of cacao has been dropping, but the price of chocolate has been rising.
I mean,
So what are we talking about here? The price of chocolate globally is rising, but the price of the raw material that makes chocolate, which is farmed in Africa, is dropping.
It's dropping.
We must always be doing value addition before we send anything out of Africa, and he's been pushing and promoting that a lot. 0719-012-600. Join the conversation. Justus in Kilifi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Justus.
Some of our domestic quarrels.
All right,
right.
Let's start again, just as you put us
Yeah,
on hold for a bit.
Okay, let me. Oku.
Ndu, yes.
Yeah, I like the way you are framing the performance of is called Akinu, the president.
Yes.
The president. However, unless I'm wrong, the loan portfolio of the bank has gone down by 25%. In the last 2 years. That was his period. So think about that. But the other point I want to make is this: the bank presidency is a geopolitical position, so it's normally politically negotiated. If you remember well, the election of this current president was spearheaded by no other than Olusegun Obasanjo.
Yep.
In fact, he was not even among the top 4 candidates. He was pushed. He was politically campaigned for. So, those who kill by the sword also get hammered by the sword.
No, I don't think that's an argument that can be used here, because the people who are hold on, the people who are asking for him to be removed. I mean, how? We're talking about the work that he has been. We're talking about the work that he has. We're talking about the work that he has done in the time that he has been there. We're talking about him going into a second term uncontested. We're talking at the same time about an investigation having been done, set up by the board members of the bank, who, by the way, are not just Africans, who are just not Africans, and they have cleared him.
Allow me to come back to that. The whistleblowing policy is an FDB policy.
Yep.
But the same policy, the analysts have also confirmed that the internal mechanisms for ethics supervision in FDB are not the best. If he is that innocent, why is he against an independent investigation? We are not saying it's not an independent condemnation.
No.
I guess it's what it implies, right?
It implies so much.
Because
no, it isn't.
The internal mechanism, the one that now the analysts are suddenly saying is not the best, is an internal mechanism that has been set up. It's a structure of the board, right? This the board. It's a board committee. That's the ethics committee. And if you have a complaint against the bank, it goes to the ethics committee. The ethics committee investigates. The ethics committee conducted its investigation. It even called in the whistleblowers and it asked them, so give us the evidence that you have, give us the information that you have, and also we'll also conduct our own independent investigation. And they came out and said, look, this is what we asked the whistleblowers to give us. They did not give us. They did not provide us any more information. From our own investigation, this is what we saw. So at what point then are we now starting to say, to question the workings of the ethics committee?
Eric, you have had a conversation since morning talking about the police.
Yep.
One of the things you are raising is the doubts people have about the internal mechanisms for supervision and adherence to ethics.
Yep.
There are holes through it. And I can assure you, many policy analysts have said that FDP has one of the weakest internal ethics policies and mechanisms. And the other thing I want to make is this, right? That if you look at the specific allegations raised by the whistleblowers in the bank, they are more to do also with the internal human resource processes and the hirings, which in a way could have also compromised the very process internally. Let me also share you another example. In the last 2 years, there were similar complaints at some of the UN bodies. I don't want to name which one, but it was also actually the same kind of internal whistleblowing and the accusations were raised severally. And ironically, the hold of that same office was also from Nigeria. Let me make a fairly politically incorrect statement. It is in many of these Pan-African bodies where our brothers and sisters from Nigeria are heading. It's an occasional, it's a recurrent observation that one of the things they do is fill the positions with kith and kin, And then they are very good at framing issues when they blow out like this. Me, I vote for an independent investigation, not an independent panel to condemn him, but to investigate because the internal mechanisms are very weak. Yes.
You feel that the internal mechanisms are weak?
Are weak, and at the same time, the accusation he's being accused of is filling the same internal positions with these people.
But let me ask you, Justus. So let's look at, and yet you've said yes in many of these regional and international organizations where we are seeing Nigerian nationals at the helm. They come in and they they start controlling by placing their own kith and kin into these positions.
Yes.
However, this is the first time in the history of the AFDB that a Nigerian is president.
Is president.
The first time in the history of AFDB.
He's not the only senior Nigerian there. He's not the only first senior Nigerian.
No, he's not. At the same time, the board committee that investigates this does not have a Nigerian sitting on it. It's actually headed by a Japanese board member.
Yes, I know that. The board member is a Chinese. The internal mechanisms. Look, what we're talking about.
I think we need to separate issues here, because if you're talking about then Nigerians being at the helms of wherever, and then you're talking about that, here we have a board that is also, in terms of the ethics the ethics commission that has been set aside and the committee that has been put on to look into this, cleared this individual. Cleared him completely.
And the ethics board does not have a Nigerian in it.
The ethics board
is actually comprising
headed by a Japanese
board members,
gentleman.
of directors.
I'm repeatedly saying that policy analysts have shown that the internal ethics and ethics management mechanism of FDP is weak.
If we want to use that, let's take it to its end then. If you want to use that as an argument, we must then also ask ourselves then, where are these policy analysts from?
The question is,
where are they from, these policy analysts?
The question is.
No. I'm asking where these policy analysts are from. Who are they? Just give us one.
We go that direction, we make the argument smaller.
No. We have to go that way because you've brought that in as an argument, saying that policy analysts have said that the internal mechanisms are weak. Who are these policy analysts?
You can share an email. I send you reports. The point is, what is the problem with the independent investigation if it's as clean as
we must also look at the other side and say that if there's a reason why they're bringing this investigation at the time where we are left 2 months before an election, why now? If this was a problem that they had seen over the last 5 years, why didn't they bring it in the moment that they saw it? Because before this election period, we've never heard about allegations coming against Adesina. In fact, before this, the same countries that we're talking about have actually lauded his efforts in what he's been able to do. So now an election is coming up, and they've seen that some of the policies that he has actually been pushing for African countries would be to their detriment economically. So why now? We must ask ourselves that question as well. We can't go one way. If we're looking at an argument, it has to go from end to end, always. Whether it is a Nigerian at that helm, whether it is a Chinese man, whether it is somebody from Cote d'Ivoire or Kenya, it has to be that we have to look at all sides of the argument. If there was such a problem with this gentleman, why did it not come up before? And these are what people are bringing forward.
So are we suspecting that the independent panel will find him guilty?
The independent panel has it doesn't matter.
We don't
know because that investigation has not taken place.
I guess the issue, Justus, and I see what your point is, and your point is, well, if there is nothing, let's have that independent panel set up, okay?
Yeah, we'll come out stronger.
And then, but the other question is the optics of it. If the optics of it said that the structure of AFDB does not provide for an independent investigator to come in and investigate what's happening at the helm of the organization, this is how we shall investigate. So when you start saying, let's bring in an external investigator, first of all, you're already besmirching the members of the board. You're besmirching the members who sat in that ethics committee of the board and saying that all of them, I don't trust them. And then the optics of it are, all along, you have been opposed to the leadership of this person. You as a country, you as the board member representing that country in the board of the AFDB, you've always been opposed to him. From the very beginning, you did not support his election in the first term. You have not supported his workings during his tenure. And now you have gone all the way to the head of your country, the Treasury Department of your country, the Treasury Ministry, and said, we don't support what the board has done. So I think it's the optics. And that's what
I agree with
the
you.
pushback is coming from that angle of the optics. And also questioning, do we know whether this internal independent, whatever we want to call independent audit, will not even be interfered with in the first place?
It's a big question, and I agree with that we don't know what it may look like. But also remember this, Eric, if we are talking about optics.
Yep.
When this guy came in, 3 vice presidents, Zimbabwe, I think Tanzania, the other one was, I can't remember which country, actually were pushed out.
Yep.
So he's not as nice as we may want to portray. He's a good man. He may have done his job. But at the same time, he's a politician. So let him, if the politics is putting him out to dry, let's give the due process. If he's good, he'll come back. Yes.
Basically what you're saying is he may not be as clean, and well, clearly, when you see stuff coming out to say that what we are accusing him of is coming to push everybody around.
There's a $18 million tender given some funny farm. There are several. The big whistleblowers had specific cases. I wish you could respond to each one of them. These internal ethics committees, which are normally compromised, especially if you have pushed out all the senior officers you found there. I want to take you back to the discussion you had earlier about the police.
Yeah,
there are mechanisms on paper. And they can see it, they can ratify, we have the cleanest police force in this country.
Yeah.
But you know the truth.
Yes.
So why don't we open him up to this independent body? We can be discussing how that body is formed if we are doubting influence from elsewhere. In any case, Nigeria has 18%, isn't it? The bank. The North African countries have around 45%. So in any case, they can all determine who actually the autonomy of whoever sits in that independent board.
Nigeria has 9%, US has 6.5%.
I think, yeah.
It's 9%,
yes.
And America has 6.5%.
Yes, sorry, I'm
the second highest.
I'm mixing my statistics, yes.
Yeah. So,
but still, the African countries, if their shareholders, they can select some of the most qualified and most independent people to sit in that board. And then it comes out cleaner, better, without the stench of nepotism.
And by that time, everything else will have been impacted in terms of the optics, the independence.
It is already being. In fact, the longer it's out here, the more it's making him worse.
The worse it looks.
Like he's hiding something. It's like he's hiding something. And especially if he has friends who are defending him too loudly, then it traces what is it he's hiding.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't, I guess is where we are.
The full dilemma, right?
Okay, good points, Julius. Justice, thank you very much, and have a good day in Kilifi.
Although I caveat,
yes.
I'm not an economist, so I could be actually sharing rumors.
Well,
should have started with that. Anyway, good stuff. Thank you very much. Have a good day, Justice. 0719-012-600. What do you think? Should this push for an independent investigation into the president of the AFDB be accepted, or should it be rebuffed? We are seeing African leaders, especially so far, leaders from the Western African countries, coming out strongly to say, no, we are not going to take this. This is a ploy by the Western countries, Western powers to try and come in and interfere with the AFDB because of the direction that the AFDB has started taking. The AFDB in the last couple of years has started taking a certain direction, which is sort of appearing to be gaining some independence from the powers of those Western headquarters. So what exactly is happening to this kind of conversation? 0719-012-600. From Diani, we have William calling in. Good morning, William.
Good morning.
Good morning, William.
Eric. Good morning.
Karibu to the
situation. It's been a heated morning, it's been a heated morning. I normally have an easy one listening to you, but today my blood was boiling.
Is it? Okay.
Listen, yeah, my contribution is very small. If you look from the tone, if you can hear from the tone the last 2 weeks on the issues of Black Lives Matters, the whole tone is that, listen, even as much as Africans are making mistakes, but they're trying to set up their own. Allow them to set up their own. Run their own. Understand their mistakes. Point them out, but do not interfere.
Step back.
step back. Allow us to understand. You see, there's another hidden hand that we are not looking at in this picture, and it's the French Treasury, the French Reserve Bank, where Francophone countries are forced to place their capital reserves, a percentage of their capital reserves, and deposit in that bank and get it back as a loan on interest rates that are unimaginable, and this is their own money. Okay, so if we are talking about optics, there are so many things to consider. But as Africans, sometimes we need to put that blind eye and say, this is one of our own initiatives. Allow us to run. Let us see points. These are mistakes, but allow us to correct ourselves. It is in that process that we grow on our own. Okay?
But what?
And sorry?
What do you say, William, to what Justus was saying? If indeed you are as white as snow, just subject yourself to that independent investigation.
I agree, but the way it is being pushed, the hard stance that United States is, it's like I'm a big boy, and this small organization of yours that I have this portfolio in of as much as it's not a big interest to me, I can control it. You get? Now let's talk about optics. That is optics. So for me, I get frustrated at the fact that you coming from outside, you're telling me, as much as I bought anyanya for that stew, I think the whole pot is stupid and we should change it, because I contributed a tomato. But you're not from my household.
This is not what you should be doing in the tomato that I give you.
Exactly.
Don't cook it.
Exactly.
Make
exactly my
paste.
point.
Right. Use it this way.
Exactly. And on the same note, there I hear a Kenyan complaining about AFDB at this moment. Because what we do, we don't contribute. We borrow. You see, our problem as a country also is that
William.
No, I'm telling the truth. Listen, we tend to complain too much on things that we really don't have solid ownership and standing. We just rush to condemn, rush to but when it comes to hard solid stakes and investments, we don't. And if there's one thing coronavirus has shown us, save.
It's important. William, thank you very much. Thank you for your call this morning.
Yes, guys, you have a good morning.
Thanks so much, William.
You're putting up the pressure in the morning. Now I was driving and I was even shaking at some point because
That's good.
Good morning.
That's good.
Thank you so much.
Your pressure is up. That's a good one. Thank you very much. And thank you for tuning in to the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow. We have more discussions to have. So what do you want to say finally on this AFDB issue? Leave our brother alone.
Well, no, I mean, apart from that, look, like I said, and it's if we continue to look towards African solutions, and I think we can't ignore the fact that this is ruffling feathers somewhere because of this. It is clear that we really need to be able to pull the wool off and look at what the underlying issues really are. It wouldn't have come up if he wasn't going for a second term, unfortunately.
True.
So I think we need to look at this with the blinders off.
If you know that you don't know,
you don't know.
You will know. If you do not know that you do not know, you will not know. This is a proverb from Mali, and I think it's self-explanatory. If you know that you don't know, then you will know because you'll strive to find out. But if you don't know that you don't know, then you will not know because you'll be living in that ignorance that you've been living in forever.
So
please know that you don't know and start finding out so that you can know. Thank you for tuning in. Join Monique at 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. as she takes you home on Spice Drive, and then the adults in the room later on at 7 to 10. Good morning. It's now coming up to 10 o'clock. See you again tomorrow. Signing off is Nduoko and Eric Latif. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice up your life